Good morning. We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, live on your TV, as mentioned on ESPN2, and presented by Progressive Insurance, with all our guests this morning and every morning on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. And so glad you've chosen to start this Wednesday with us, the 23rd of July, the year 2014. All is well here, and there's a lot of news to get out there. Obviously, this morning you heard some of it covered in the open, and it begins today with the clarification from Tony Dungy that didn't seem to be that clear to many people who read it, heard it, and saw it.
Well, I guess I was going to go right to you because you said you wanted to hear from Tony. I had given my opinion yesterday about the quotes, and you had said you wanted to wait till you heard about them more, maybe in context, or heard again from Tony Dungy. So we've heard from Tony Dungy in his statement, and I wonder, what...
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Tony Dungy made it very clear. What he said yesterday was he thinks Michael Sam should be allowed to play in the National Football League. He just couldn't play for him. I mean, it's really not any more complicated than that. If you read Tony Dungy's statement, he says he wouldn't draft Michael Sam because it would be a distraction. He then said, I was not asked whether or not Michael Sam deserves an opportunity to play in the NFL. He absolutely does. But by saying I wouldn't draft him because of the distraction, what he's basically saying is he deserves to play in the NFL, just not on my team.
And I understand that. I mean, he said in his statement yesterday, in part, what I was asked was about my philosophy of drafting, a philosophy that was developed over the years, which was to minimize distractions for my team. And it goes on to say that Michael Sams deserves the chance to play in the league, but he minimizes distraction. It's what I was talking about at the end of the show and what I started hearing a couple of former players talking about, and I said this is the reality of it, is where's your talent, where's your distraction meter, where do they meet, that decides whether I'm going to draft you or not. That's what this is. And you can like it, you can dislike it, but that's the reality in sports and in case football, and I get it. We brought up the comparison yesterday of Michael Vick and the distraction, how he was a mentor to Michael Vick, and many thought if he was a coach, he would have taken Michael Vick as he was trying to help him out. And a lot of people saying, well, wait a minute, you'll help Michael Vick. You won't help Michael Sam, or you said you wouldn't draft him. There's the difference right there. And it's what I've talked about forever in the NFL and quite honestly about any sport. The better you are, the more leash you get. And Michael Vick, let's be honest, at that time, I mean, when he got signed by the Eagles, we know the year that he had, another deal that he had signed. He was still playing at a high caliber. And Michael Sam is a seventh-round draft pick. So this is true, that this is the Troy Aikman falling asleep in the meeting and Jimmy Johnson asking him to wake up as opposed to a backup doing it and getting cut. This is Marcel Darius or Albert Hainsworth failing a conditioning test and a backup or a guy at the end of the roster doing that and getting cut, and the other not. This is what sports is. This is, in this case, the NFL. This is what it is. Your talent, how much Mike Singletary sat in here yesterday and said, what's your value of winning? That's what I'm looking for when I draft somebody. How much can you help the team win? And then that's put aside with everything else. And that's what this is. This is a seventh-round talent in the eyes of the Rams, and in some, they weren't even going to draft him, saying, this is not worth us drafting. Even though he may make it, it's not worth us drafting to where we think his talent level is and what distractions may come from it.
Well, there are certain things in the statement that just don't fit together. The one thing I think Tony Dungy probably didn't want to say is, I don't think Michael Sam's a good enough player to be worth his trouble. I think he probably didn't want to say that because it's a nasty thing to say.
I'm sure he didn't want to say
publicly about a young man who's trying to make a football team. So he probably did not want to say that, which, in his mind, I agree with you. He's probably thinking, heck, if he's Michael Vick, maybe I'll put up with it. If he's Michael Sam and I don't think he can play in the first place, I'm not going to go to the trouble. I get that he doesn't want to say that right now about the kid while the kid's starting his first training camp, to have someone of the stature of Tony Dungy saying it. But in one statement, he says, I answered I would not have drafted him because I felt drafting him would bring much distraction to the team. Later in the statement, he says, I do not believe Michael's sexual orientation will be a distraction to his teammates or his organization.
He thinks it's going to be the media, he said. He went on to say
but
it's
what
going
do
to
you
be
care
the media.
I guess my point is, if the media is distracted, doesn't that by definition distract the teammates and the organization?
Well,
I mean, you're really parsing words here. It's all the same thing.
He is.
You're either creating a distraction or you're not.
Because the media, what he is saying, the media is going to cause this. It would lead to what Antonio Pierce said yesterday that if I'm a teammate, I'm going to keep getting asked the questions by the media, and, you get tired of that. So, yeah, it would steamroll one into the other.
But I guess the point is, if you're going to have a workplace, let's just take the sport and everything else out of it. If you're going to have a workplace that is fair and open to all people, someone has to be willing to do this, right? There was always going to be a first one. And what Tony Dungy is saying is, wasn't going to be me.
Wasn't going to be. Well, so you still think it had something to do with the fact that he's gay?
Well, what else does it have to do with? It's a distraction.
It has to do with the distraction.
But he's only a distraction because he's gay.
I understand.
If he was just a seventh-round pick out of Missouri who was the co-defensive player of the year. And by the way, I mean, it's worth pointing out, and I'll give Robin Lundberg credit. I heard him say it as I was coming in this morning, and I hadn't thought of it this way. Michael Sam's teammates at Missouri knew that he was gay. Many of them suspected it, apparently, but then all of them, he told all of them before last season began. They unanimously kept it a secret through the year, had a great year in which they went to the conference championship game, and he was the co-defensive player of the year in the best conference in the country.
Right.
So it wasn't much of a distraction for them, obviously, right? Somehow, it did not create any disharmony within their locker room. Now, obviously, the media didn't know about it. Apparently, in fact, some media did know about it,
and they also
kept it quiet as well.
That's not happening, and obviously, it wasn't Michael Sam
he told the world.
Right.
Because he wanted to, because he didn't want to. He said, look, I don't want my life to be a secret anymore. I'm going to live my life freely, and I'm going to try and play football at the same time. Someone was eventually going to be the first one to do that.
Right.
Whoever that person was, by these standards, was going to create a distraction. So you can say this doesn't have anything to do with him being gay, but the reality is the distraction is because he's gay. So if you were going to have a gay player on your team and you don't want to have a distraction, you were not going to have the gay player on your team.
We disagree there. To me, it's the distraction. Because if he was first-round talent, it wouldn't be the distraction, and he'd still be gay. So there's no distraction.
It would be a distraction. It would not be a distraction if he was gay. If Johnny Manziel was gay, that wouldn't be a distraction.
My point is they would deal with that distraction because he's a first-round talent. To me, it doesn't matter.
Well, Tony didn't say that. I mean, nowhere in the statement does it say, if he was a first-round pick, I would deal with the distraction. He says, I was asked about my philosophy of drafting, which was to eliminate distraction.
Then this is what we continue to do. Then you say you say he's doing it because he's gay and no other reason.
I say he's doing it because he's a distraction. Being gay is the reason he's a distraction.
Right, he's a distraction. So to me, you can almost cut out the gay part. It's a distraction. That's what we're talking about here. Michael Vick was a distraction, but he was a great talent, so the Philadelphia Eagles took him, and the team was going to take him because he was worth the distraction. There are many teams that were saying Michael Sam distraction isn't worth it. Now, are there some that weren't going to take him because he was gay? Probably, but we're never going to know that. No one's going to say that.
Okay, now I understand what you think I'm saying. I just figured out what you mean. I don't think Tony Dungy is saying, I don't want the player on my team because he's gay.
Right.
But I do think that in part and parcel, it's the same thing. Ultimately, this is about giving a guy a chance to play.
Right.
And if his being gay is the reason that he's a distraction, and you won't take him because he's a distraction, then he's not getting a chance because he's gay. Then a gay player is not getting a chance because his gayness is creating a distraction. And that is what is not fair, because someone has to give him a chance. If you're going to let the kid play, if you're going to have a workplace where gay people are allowed to participate, someone has to be willing to take that chance.
Well,
someone has to be willing to, for lack of a better word, deal with that distraction. And what Tony is saying is, I was not going to be the one willing to do it.
You know what? And the reality of the sport says the better you are, the more they're willing to deal with any distraction.
No, I understand that.
That's the sport. So.
Yeah.
Jeff
Fisher,
what
you're saying is that there was a much better player. We're going to have Jeff Fisher live today, 8:30 Eastern time.
If Michael Sam was a first-round, second-round, third-round talent, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We would not be having this discussion.
Well, we'd be having a different discussion. There would be infinitely more discussion about him and the fact that he is gay, because if he was a much higher profile player. He is going to be largely an afterthought. This whole idea this is going to be some media firestorm is ridiculous. This is only getting attention now because Tony Dungy said it.
Right.
And when he said it seems to be a matter of some dispute, and we just sent a note to Ira to try and find out, because we spoke to Ira Kaufman yesterday, the writer of the story, and I didn't get the impression, and nor did you, that this interview took place 2 months ago.
No.
But in Tony's statement, he says it took place during that window of time when the Oprah Winfrey thing was still in the conversation. That was like a 2-day period.
Which a whole lot of us thought was a bad idea.
It was. But my point is that was a long, long time ago.
Right.
So maybe I guess it doesn't at the end of the day make that much difference when it is. The point is, I think Michael Sam is going to be there. I don't know if he's going to make the team or not. If he does make the team, it sounds to me like he's going to be a guy who doesn't play a whole lot. He'll play on special teams. He might situational pass rusher. I don't know. And I don't think there's going to be almost any attention paid to it at all.
I agree with you there. I agree with you.
I'm not sure what distraction it is we're so worried about.
Well, but every team was going to be worried about something. There was going, especially when we were talking about the whole Oprah Winfrey thing and possibly going to do a show. That was a bad idea, which I'm glad smarter heads prevailed there, and it didn't happen. There's going to be some. Listen, he's the first. There's going to be some. While I don't think it's going to be as much as something, we can't poo-poo it either. I mean, he's the first openly gay man to play in the NFL and be drafted by the NFL. There's going to be some things attached to that.
Like,
there's just
what things got attached to Jason Collins? Jason Collins came out. He played for the Nets last year. People clapped a little bit the first time he came into the game, and then after that, I don't even think it was mentioned again. Did you hear any mention of it?
It will be asked of the players on the team every day by the media.
Were the Brooklyn Nets asked about Jason Collins every day?
I can't answer that.
So what's the difference? Why would all of the Rams be asked that if the Nets were not?
I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. In my opinion, that's what's going to happen.
So every day, someone in that locker room is going to ask a Rams player, what's it like having Michael Sam in
Yes, or something along those lines. Yes. There will be a question like that. Michael Sam will be. Now, it depends on what access, and we'll be able to ask Jeff Fisher what plans are there, for the media and accessibility to Michael Sam. And listen, this is when you talk to a lot of the players. So, yes, there is going to be. Do I think it's going to be as much as some people are saying? No, I'm with you on that. But it is going to be it is going to be more than the normal, especially for a 7th-round draft pick. 7th-round draft pick, you wouldn't hear his name again unless it was he made the team, the practice squad, or he was on the waiver wire. That'd be the next time you hear a 7th-round name. This is going to be different. That in and of itself is already out of the norm.
It's out of the norm. Of course it's out of the norm. He's out of the norm.
Yes, he is.
Normal NFL
so it's
players
going to be an out-of-the-norm situation. So, again, it brings me to the statement that coaches will look at out of the norm as opposed to talent level. Where do they meet? Is it worth it for my team? That's what NFL teams and coaches. Mike Singletary said it yesterday right here. So that's what they do. Lovie Smith said it. We take in everything from on the field to off the field, everything into the one player and decide if it's worth it or not.
We are Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Now you can test drive Snapshot to see how much you could save. Before switching to Progressive, visit progressive.com/snapshot. I was watching Tony and Michael talking about this last night on PTI.
Right.
And the thought kept going through my mind. They were talking about it, and I'll phrase it slightly differently, but the initial thought came from them, which is it is obvious, and we were inundated with a flood of this yesterday, that if what we're going to do is we're going to talk about creating a distraction or being different. Let's say being different,
right.
Okay? Being black and being gay are obviously not the same thing.
Right.
But being different from almost all the others, if not all the others around you, it is the same thing. So if Tony Dungy was deprived multiple opportunities to be a head coach, and I think that is basically documented. No one stood up there and said, I didn't hire Tony Dungy because he's black. But I think we all sort of felt that was clearly what was going on.
Right.
If that was the thing, isn't that quite similar to people saying, because it's different? Well, he's different. He's different from everyone that's coming, so it's going to be a little different. You're going to be asked different questions. It is in and of itself going to be different, just like a 7th-round draft pick being mentioned outside of being on the waiver wire, whatever it is being different. Isn't it at least a little disappointing that someone who had lived through that experience would not say, I think it would be good that someone gives this guy a chance and we give an opportunity to someone else and we put up with whatever distraction it is because the guy deserves a chance to play? I mean, I guess that's really the other way to look at it.
Well, then you better so you're saying it's a charity case?
No, not a charity case.
Okay,
I don't think the Rams drafted him on a charity case.
He was a 7th-round pick.
No, but
31 teams passed him 7 times.
No, I know that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is he's saying he wouldn't have drafted him because of the distraction. If there was a tie, he would have gone no. And wouldn't you like to have heard perhaps a guy who has had his life experience say, in the case of a tie, maybe I'd like to give the guy a chance?
I don't know if it was a tie. Quite honestly, I don't know if it was a tie. And I don't know just what you said before.
Someone took him. I mean, the point is, it's not like he was so bad that you wouldn't even consider putting him on the team.
One team took him. Okay.
After you don't know rounds. You don't think others might have taken him if it hadn't been for the fact that he's gay?
The distraction that would have come with it, yes. I think people passed on him for that, yes.
That's my point.
That his talent didn't equal what they thought would happen off the field. So, no, I'm not going to blame a team for that. No.
You're missing my point.
No, I know your point. You're saying give him a chance because he's in that situation, the situation Tony Dungy was in.
I'm saying, I don't know this for sure, if Michael Sam had never opened up his mouth and if no one knew he was gay before the draft, he would have been drafted. He was the co-SEC defensive player of the year.
That means nothing. I don't care about co-SEC. It means nothing.
Well, my point is, when he started dropping in the evaluation process, we never heard anyone say, well, this guy will never play in the NFL. He was thought to be a guy who's good enough to get a chance to play, right?
A chance to play, and it showed that, he's going to get a chance to play, yes.
Well, all right, so someone at least thought he was worthy of being selected somewhere.
Right.
So if he's worthy of being selected somewhere, I guess what I'm saying is, it's not a charity case. He wasn't drafted solely because he's gay.
But you're asking Tony Dungy to say, Tony, you've been through these tough situations, so I'm surprised you wouldn't give him a chance. What if Tony Dungy truly believes that he doesn't have the talent?
Well,
Tony Dungy's
that's
not
different.
Say that.
That's the unspoken thing in all of this.
That's exactly right.
Is that I think Tony Dungy does not want to say, I don't think the kid's good enough to play in the NFL.
I think I agree with you.
And you're hearing that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not a scout. I'm not an evaluator.
We're going to find out.
But that is sort of the sense you're hearing from people just sort of out there in the culture is that there's a lot of concern the kid just isn't that good.
Right.
And that is what it is. I mean, you're right. You can be a very, very good player on the college level and not have it translate over to the pro level.
I think that's where we're going now because he's not saying that, so we're interpreting yet again. And I think that's kind of where he might be leaning to say, I may not have taken him anyway.
I guess all I'm saying is, it sounds to me like he's saying, if it came down to him or someone else who are basically equal, I'll take the other guy because that guy doesn't create the distraction.
Right.
And that happened to him time and time and time again, to Tony, time and time and time again. It came down to him and someone else, and that someone else wasn't different, so they hired the someone else. And I guess there's a part of me that thinks, if I were in his position, I might be inclined, again, not to draft a kid if I don't think he can play.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. It is on merit. He used the word merit multiple times, and I think that largely sports is the ultimate meritocracy. You're either good enough, big enough, fast enough, strong enough, or you're not. And that's the way it should be.
Right.
Frankly, it's the way it should be everywhere in life. And in sports, it is that way more than anywhere else. But in this case, it sounds to me like he's saying, in the event of a tie, I would vote no. And there was a part of me that would like to have heard him say, in the event of a tie, I would vote yes. I'd be leaning towards, let's give the guy a chance, because other people might be inclined not to.
See, that's how you look at it. I look at it as I don't think he thought he was good enough to draft. I mean, we're left again to interpret because of the statement that we got. So, but this is also, and I get what you're saying, but every coach I know, I mean, the worst things in the world they hate is that word, distraction. How much of distraction it's going to be, I have no idea. And there are times, and I've said this, I think the word distraction is an overused and overrated word for what actual distraction there is in the locker room.
We're Mike and Mike. We're brought to you by Sport Clips. It's client appreciation at Sport Clips. Get a double MVP haircut experience for the price of a single. Hurry. It ends July 31st. So that's sort of where that thing sits now. Tony did not appear anywhere, to my knowledge, yesterday, right? I think he just released his statement and then didn't go anywhere. Yes. Didn't go on with us, or he didn't go on with Dan or anybody else we know is close to Dan. I would have expected maybe he would land there. He didn't. He chose he's on vacation, and he's sort of going to put out the statement. And I think that largely it goes away. I don't think this is the biggest thing in the world. I don't think it's particularly surprising. But I do think that it is. I think that it is. The fact that it came from him surprised me a little. Just a little. Not a lot, but a little.
I think it surprised a lot of people. I mean, yesterday, yes, we were all talking about how it was a surprising, the way we kind of interpreted and the way we were left to interpret. And I still think after a statement came out, we're still left to interpret a little more on that as well. And you're right. I don't know if he taught maybe the first time he's back at his actual job on the set somewhere, he'll discuss it again at that time. We'll see. I don't know, because it'll probably be a little while before that happens.
Coming up, Michael Sam did respond to this. You'll hear that coming up in just a few moments, and much more as we continue on Mike and Mike. But right now, a word from Western and Southern, Golick, where they know money can be complicated. All the financial terms and investment options can be overwhelming. Don't wade through the confusion on your own.
Yep, Western and Southern financial translators break it all down and offer simple, practical solutions that fit any budget. So when do you think is a good time to call Western and Southern? How about if you're getting married, having a baby, time to get life insurance, buying a home? Life insurance can help protect it if something happens to you. Are you a grandparent? They can help protect and plan for your grandkids' future. A financial translator can help you analyze what you need and ensure your family is protected. Western and Southern, one of the strongest financial groups in the world. They'll be there when you need them. Western and Southern has been helping families secure their financial futures for more than 126 years. Talk to a financial translator today. Got a special website just for our listeners. Visit westernsouthern.com/Mike.
All right, again, Michael Sam responded to Tony Dungy. You'll hear what he had to say next. And coming up, we have proof, Golick, that no matter how rich and powerful you are, your wife still tells you what to do. That's next. We're Mike and Mike. That's a good statement. I mean, he says he's got respect for Tony. He's sort of joking around, says, thank goodness he wasn't the coach of this team. And that's sort of like under every single joke, there's a tiny little kernel of truth. And that's sort of the point that I was making off the top of the show. But one way or another, that's not Michael Sam's concern. He's going to try and make the football team. Training camp opens up here, and we'll have Jeff Fisher on to talk about it a little later.
He handled that well. Listen, this has been a process, and he's learned along the way as well as others have as well. From just what you want to do after you're drafted to, we talked about it before, as it turns out, was this Tony Dungy interview going on when the thought of this reality show, or documentary, I think they were going to call it, following Michael Sam around, and then smarter heads absolutely prevailed there and said, no, let's not do that. Let him go play football. And that's where we are. And I think at the end of the day, that's what Jeff Fisher is going to say is, let's get to what we drafted him for, and that's to play football. And let's go from there. Let's see what he can do on the field, and let's go from there.
All right, so we'll talk to Jeff a little bit later, and that's the subject people were talking about. I do think it starts to fade away now unless there's something that comes up that gives it another day's worth of legs. Tony has made his point. People can have their own view on whatever it is that Tony said. Some will support him, some will disagree, and on we will move. LeBron James sent cupcakes to his neighbors. During the last couple of weeks, when the whole LeBron decision 2.0 was going on, you saw all the video about the police that were out staking out's the wrong word, but in LeBron's neighborhood to just sort of keep some semblance of order. There's reporters everywhere. There's all sorts of craziness everywhere. And for many people who live in the area, like David Galehouse, who's a rising sophomore at Ohio State, his childhood home is just a few blocks away, he said it was, quote, really hectic around here. So LeBron, wanting to make sure he's in the good graces of his neighbors, last night sent a team from Baker Boulevard Decadent Desserts around his neighborhood to hand-deliver cupcakes to apologize for the traffic jams caused by the interest in LeBron's return. They came with a card that said, "Dear friend, we know things have been hectic in our neighborhood these past few weeks. We are sorry for the chaos. We are so thankful to live in this wonderful community, and we are so blessed to have understanding neighbors like you," and then they hand-delivered cupcakes. Now, Golick is going to get into the kinds of cupcakes.
Yes, I am.
That's the part of it that jumped out at me, at you. Mm-hmm. The part of it that jumped out to me is there's no question this was his wife's idea.
No doubt.
Am I the only person who read that story and said, there's no man on the planet that's ever thought to himself, this has been difficult for the neighbors, let's send cupcakes? That was his wife's idea, and good for her. That's exactly the kind of thing. For anyone who wonders what it's like to be married, we have a lot of young guys listen to our show, and they don't, young women as well. But I'm, in this case, particularly thinking of young men who are listening to us thinking, I wonder what it's like to be married. Take it from two old married farts like us. Your wife thinks, you know what, we should hand-deliver cupcakes to people if we have created a challenging situation for them. Let's hand-deliver cupcakes. I would be showing up at people's houses empty-handed constantly were it not for my wife reminding me we need to bring something.
Without a doubt.
This is Savannah's doing.
I don't think there's any doubt. And your lesson is absolutely correct. I have relinquished power in the home years ago. Years ago. I don't make the decisions. I don't want to. Because then, here's the deal. If something goes wrong, I can just say, wasn't me.
Yeah.
I didn't make the decision.
You have plausible deniability.
I have trouble when I go on the road when we're on the road, but when I was calling games, I'd be on the road, I'd be by myself. I struggled with where I wanted to eat. I couldn't make a decision for myself, figuring if I stop here, I'm going to eat here, I'm going to be mad because when I leave, I'm going to see a place I would have rather have gone to. I can't make a decision on my own, so I've relinquished power, and inside the home, this no doubt was Savannah. Could you just imagine? Yes, Mr. James, what would you like to set on the card? Well, I think I'd like to. We know things have been hectic in our neighborhood for the past week. No way, LeBron. No way LeBron is doing that.
No, that's Savannah.
That's Savannah. And, oh, by the way,
let's hear about the cupcakes.
2 kinds were delivered to each neighbor. Looks like a total of 12. The one was 6 Just a Kid from Akron Cherry Cola cupcakes and 6 homemade chocolate chunk cupcakes.
So when you say 12, I think each neighbor got 12.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't a total of 12.
No.
Each neighbor got a dozen
absolutely.
cupcakes.
I mean, that's Savannah.
It's well done.
LeBron, I'm sorry, I can't put this on you.
Why didn't Savannah move it next to me? She could have been delivering us cupcakes.
Listen, because let's be honest, let's go all the way back to her Instagram.
Yeah.
She was right on.
That's
okay?
Okay.
That decision was made a long time ago before LeBron made the decision. You know what I mean?
That was the decision 3.0.
LeBron, you can go ahead and say publicly whenever you want, but I'm going to go ahead and put on Instagram where we're going to be.
It doesn't matter how rich you are, how famous you are, how powerful you are. There are some things that transcend all of that. We learned that with the president. Remember when we met the president of the United States, President Bush, President George W. Bush, 43. We met him and his wife. We were presented to the two of them together by a member of the Coast Guard. And he knew who we were. We came around a corner, and the two of them are standing there, and the Coast Guard guy who's taking us over there has a card with our names on it.
Would have been our names and I'm sure where we're from.
He's going to say.
Would have given some information about us.
He is going to say, Mr. President, Mrs. Bush, I think that's how they would have called her. We didn't get a chance to hear it.
Nope.
Because he didn't get to say a word.
Nope.
He had a little card. He would have said, this is Mike Greenberg and Mike Golick from ESPN. They do a show called Mike and Mike. And she would then have been able to greet us properly, as you could tell she wanted to.
Exactly.
She was very friendly and very nice.
Yes, she was.
But the president, the second we come around the corner, looks at us, and he goes, "Hey, Mike and Mike, all right. Mike and Mike, all right." Just like that.
So the guy, the Marine, didn't get to say a word.
Not a word.
So we just walked up. So now Laura Bush has zero clue.
And she was mad.
Zero clue who we are. And you could tell because she gave the prez a look.
Staring a dagger through him.
Are you kidding me? Now I basically have to shake the hands of people I know zero about.
Correct.
And you know what? He knew it.
Oh, he did.
Oh, he knew it.
You could be the president.
Yeah.
You could be the leader of the free world. You could be the most powerful man on the planet. But he was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble."
Oh, blew that one.
I messed that one up.
Absolutely.
And you know what he did?
Yeah.
He said cupcakes. Yeah. I guarantee you. He called down to the White House chef. And it was like, "Listen, can we make up some cupcakes and send them up to the First Lady?"
Whatever her favorite dessert is, could we make that?
And right on there, sorry for the Mike and Mike fiasco. But anyway, the point of it is,
I would like this place.
They sent cupcakes to the neighbors.
I would like some of those chocolate chunk cupcakes.
Me too. See, just a kid from Akron, cherry cola cupcake. No, I'm out. I mean,
I would try it just
cherry
because
cola cupcake.
It's me. I would try it.
I'm not a huge, as a rule, fan of the cupcake.
I'm a huge fan of the cupcake.
Yeah, what is that? And what can only be described as a stunning development.
Right.
Here's the thing.
Right.
The cupcake, to me, out of all the small bakery desserts, like, I mean, I don't know how you classify that. Is a cupcake actually a pastry?
I don't think so.
When I think of a pastry, I think more of a strudel.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Bear claw.
A dessert that you might walk into a bakery and buy, cupcake is going to be low on my list.
Really?
Yeah.
Cupcake is equal to everything else on my list.
No. Well, so you're saying you have no one that you like above or below anything else?
No, I go in, again, my wife, we go to the Harvest there, and they have, it's a bakery and a restaurant. So they have all kind of baked goods from scones to muffins to cupcakes.
See, I don't put a scone and a cupcake in the same, they're not the same to me. A scone is totally different. A scone is more of a bread. A cupcake is more of a dessert. A scone is more akin to a bagel. To me.
A scone is nothing like a bagel.
A scone is something you might have with a cup of coffee for breakfast. I wouldn't have a cupcake and a cup of coffee for breakfast.
I've had both.
No, I know you have.
We do this thing there. We actually order an appetizer before our breakfast, and and it's like a cupcake or a scone.
Yes,
or a
I'll
muffin.
have the scrambled eggs and bacon, please, and I'll start with a chocolate cupcake.
They know us so well now that they bring us Chris her iced tea and me my coffee, and they say, what are you starting with? What's the appetizer?
And what might it be?
It's
a cupcake?
A maple scone.
A scone, that's what I'm saying.
A New York cheesecake, kind of a crumb cake, cheesecake type of thing. I have done cupcakes in the past. I have done mini cakes in the past.
Anyway, I think our point here, however, is that there's no way in the world that was LeBron's idea.
No.
Thank you. What everybody's talking about with Mike and Mike is brought to you by Ford Service. Keep your vehicle in shape with the works at your Ford dealer. Meanwhile, in the big picture in basketball, that isn't the biggest story today, even though it was the one that was of greatest interest to me.
Right.
There is a new suitor in on Kevin Love, a new love interest, if you will. You'll hear who it is, and it sounds like it makes a lot of sense to me. Plus, it looks like the biggest job in the sports world is all but filled. That and more on the way with Mike and Mike after a word from Goodyear. Mike, wherever the roads take you, choose Goodyear for superior performance.
Yeah, everything Goodyear's learned making tires for all-star performance inspires what they roll into yours. Exclusive tire supplier of NASCAR. And really, if Goodyear can make a tire for police officers, firefighters, and even airliners, they have a tire that will be absolutely right for you. Goodyear, chosen by those who use the world as their proving ground, just something to consider when you're choosing tires for yourself. Goodyear, more driven. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.
Tags are annoying.
I'll tell you what I love about you is you take the concept of eating healthily and mock it as though it is a ridiculous idea. I just find that it's so earnest, it's so honest in you. I just find it hilarious.
I eat healthy. When I eat healthy, I eat healthy. But when I'm not going to, when I'm going to have a muffin, I'm not going to try and have some protein this or that muffin. I'm going to have a muffin. I'm going to eat a muffin for what a muffin's supposed to be eaten for.
But you could have a protein pancake, and as you just said, if by protein you mean whipped cream.
I'm not going to do that either. When I go and I want to have pancakes, I'm going to have pancakes full on. You know what? If for lunch I'm going to have me some chicken and some broccoli, which I've done, I'll do that. That's my eating healthy. When I'm going to go have some pancakes, I don't want protein pancakes. I want pancakes
have you ever
with
tried
a side of whipped cream. Okay?
You put whipped cream on the pancakes at breakfast?
Absolutely.
Not me. No way.
I put so much. I'm known in these parts so well about how I like whipped cream.
Yeah.
You can't see my pancakes.
I can't see your pancakes anyway, but that's a whole other thought. Mike and Mike, our Sports Center is brought to you by Western and Southern. Retirement can be overwhelming, but there's no need to wade through the confusion on your own. Western and Southern will translate financial jargon to give you solutions. Talk to a financial translator today. Visit westernsouthern.com/Mike. Among the headlines yesterday, it was Chase Headley.
It's Headley.
With the walk-off single for the Yankees on the day he was traded to them in the 14th inning.
It's Headley.
No one under the age of 30 has any idea what that is from. All right, the Chicago Bulls have a new love interest. So for a while there, we thought that Kevin Love was either going to go to the Golden State Warriors, but they seem to be holding fast on not being willing to trade Klay Thompson, which makes absolutely no sense to me, or to the Cleveland Cavaliers, where they now seem to be willing to do exactly what they should do, which is trade Anthony Bennett and Andrew Wiggins and anything else that the Minnesota Timberwolves want, because you put Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving together with a fella by the name of LeBron, and you're going to win a whole lot of cupcakes. Now the Chicago Bulls seem to have gotten in on this, and I think that is a phenomenal-sounding opportunity. It looks to me like they're offering Taj Gibson, Jimmy Butler, and other various things. Now, is that as good as the package that you're getting from Minnesota? Let's sit and think about that for a minute. Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler are two very good NBA players.
Yes, they are.
Very good NBA players you can win with. They can be starting players on an NBA championship caliber team. But neither one of them, in my opinion, is now or ever going to be an NBA superstar, like a real top-level, top 20 kind of NBA player. That's my opinion. Some may disagree. The X factor in this then becomes Andrew Wiggins. If you're Minnesota, you obviously scouted Wiggins at least some, and now you're obviously scouting him like crazy. And you have to make up your mind, is Andrew Wiggins going to be a superstar? If he is, you take that deal. If he isn't, you take the Chicago deal. And either way, you make a deal. Because you got to make a Kevin Love deal while you still have the leverage.
They're going to make the deal. And you said it right the other day, is you have the leverage, and very simply said, until you don't. And you have to know where that line is. So you have to swing that leverage hammer, and when it's at its heaviest. and try and get what you can. And one of the best ways to do it is get two teams working against one another to try and get more. They may already know they want to deal with Cleveland and may just are trying to get more out of it by bringing Chicago into it, or they may not. Who knows? That's the key. You don't know. So if you're Cleveland and you're like, oh, God, he might go to Chicago, we really want him to, you sweeten the pot. Same for Chicago. So that's Minnesota. Just maximize your leverage as best you can. But I completely agree with you. If they're going to make a deal, you have to make a deal because you can get some serious talent back for Kevin Love.
The X factor in all of this, of course, is Wiggins. And how good is he going to be? I think there's some legitimate question about that. Are you better off with Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler, who are really good building block players? You know, fine caliber. Butler's a great defender, a good player. Gibson's a good player. Put them together with Ricky Rubio and whatever else is he going to try and do there and try and build something. That's not going to make you an exciting team, but it's going to make you a better team immediately. Right. When you bring in Wiggins, it's going to be a little more exciting because you're going to get a chance to watch the kid grow.
But there's a little
if he never winds up being that good,
a little more unknown of what is he going to turn into.
Now you're going to be bad forever.
A lot of that comes down to, which I talk about in the NFL draft a lot, it's true in any draft, is how did Minnesota have Wiggins rated? Because you rate everybody, even though you're not going to have a chance for somebody. Maybe they didn't do as much work at the top of the draft. Who knows of what they have as far as scouting reports on these guys. But you know about these guys, obviously. So how high of a level do you have of Wiggins? And then you use your leverage when you can. Be interesting because, boy, you put him with now you got, I mean, Paul Gasol, I know, is 34. They're both playing the power forward position, but one's 34 and one's 25. And then you got Joe Kim in the middle. So your front line's pretty darn nice, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, look, if you put Kevin Love on the Bulls, Kevin Love right now is do you think it is overstating it to say, at least in terms of preseason prognostication, you never know how things are going to play out, but at least in terms of preseason prognostication, right now Kevin Love swings the Eastern Conference. If Kevin Love, let's just say for the sake of the argument, doesn't get traded or goes to Golden State,
Cleveland,
or then right now
Cleveland
is probably the favorite.
Yep.
If Kevin Love goes to Chicago, doesn't that change? Right?
To me, it would.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the eyes of in the preseason prognostication, he then becomes the most important player in a conference in which he does not currently play.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I don't know if Vegas would agree with that. It would be interesting because we know Cleveland right now is favored. What would happen if Love did go to Chicago? How that would change? But my prognostication would. I mean, it's you still have the best player in the world with the Cavaliers, but boy, that's a lot of power. And you still do have the unknown of how's Derrick Rose coming back. That's still hanging there. Mm-hmm. But I think I would say if Love went to Chicago, I would favor them.
I would take Noah and Love together. When you look at, those two guys, you want to talk about fitting together hand in glove. Yeah. It'd be a perfect combination because Noah is the most giving big man. The guy wants to pass the ball. He doesn't want to be an offensive player. He wants to play great defense. He's a terrific passer. And then you got a guy like Love who's going to give you, let's say his numbers diminish a little with a better team around him. He's going to give you 23 and 10. All of a sudden you got those two guys. If Derrick Rose is any semblance of himself, that's a great team. A great team.
I agree.
And I think those two guys would be the best front line in the NBA.
And I think with either team, either Chicago or Cleveland, because remember, it was Love who said, I'd never sign a long-term deal in Cleveland, and as soon as LeBron went there, now he's intrigued. And to me, he goes to Cleveland, he goes to Chicago, he'd sign a long-term deal in either one of those places.
He's not going to get traded without the team that trades for him knowing they're going to get him. And I think Chicago was one of the places pre-LeBron he was interested in, Chicago and Golden State. I don't know why Golden State would be out of this thing, to be honest with you. And look, maybe they still are underneath the surface, and people don't know about it yet. We'll find out one way or another. There's a new love interest out there, and it could shift the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. Still to come, the word is fairness. The story I'm talking about is not Michael Sam. It's entirely other story, and I am really interested to hear your response. Next. What he needs to do is send cupcakes to Minnesota.
Absolutely right.
Just send some cupcakes over there. We love that story this morning. Back and better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests this morning will include Jeff Fisher, coach of the Rams, coach of Michael Sam's team. Will join us 8:30 Eastern time on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. We'll get back to that topic, but a lot of other good stuff to talk about today, including the topic of cupcakes.
Yeah.
Which, among other things, LeBron and his wife, and we both believe this clearly has to have been his wife's idea, because no married man has ever thought of sending cupcakes to his neighbors to apologize for the distraction or the difficulty and inconvenience of, very few of us have ever created like media firestorms in our neighborhoods.
Well, this conversation has a lot of tentacles to it. It started again. LeBron really is, we'd say it's his wife, had a bakery deliver a dozen cupcakes to a bunch of his neighbors. Where there was a note attached talking about how we know things have been hectic. Thanks for, it was a nice note. And as Greeny pointed out, and we believe, LeBron had nothing to do with it.
No way.
This was Savannah. This was the wife. It led to discussions, about pastries, which is another discussion, and then about control in the household. We've both been married for a long time, and I said it. I've given up control a long time ago. I don't want it. I don't want to make decisions. Because if something goes wrong, I can say, I didn't make that decision, not my fault. So we're trying to pass that along to our younger listeners. Joe emailed in. Longtime listener. I'm one of the young listeners who find myself wondering what married life will be like. I plan on getting engaged next month. And what happened was my dog, I live with my girlfriend, my dog dug a hole in the neighbor's yard this weekend. My response was to get some soil and grass seed and fix it up so it looks better than how it looked before. My girlfriend's response, she baked muffins and took them over there. Think about that, Joe. You now didn't have to do any work. You didn't have to go fill a hole and grow new grass for anybody. Your girlfriend and soon-to-be wife took care of it.
Yeah.
She baked some muffins. She went over, hey, sorry about the hole in your lawn. Here's some muffins. Enjoy them.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you're the neighbor, would you rather have the hole filled or the muffins?
Muffins.
You're going to go muffins.
Muffins.
I'd rather have the hole filled. I can get myself my own muffins. I don't feel like filling a hole.
I would want to do that.
I've never filled a hole. How big a hole is a dog digging in your lawn?
It's not a monster hole.
It's not like a crevice.
There's one of the differences of you and I. I would rather do that work myself because I'd feel better about me doing. Because I've had bare spots in the lawn before and pulled up, the dead grass.
Oh, bare spots.
Bare spots.
I'm sorry.
B-A-R-E, not B-E-A-R.
I thought you meant like a bear.
God. I've had bare spots where I've taken the dead grass away and planted seed there and tried to grow new grass. So I would rather do that.
Oh, I've done that too.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Yes. Phone book.
I've never done that. No.
Phone book. Yeah.
I mowed my lawn one and a half times.
Yeah. Just left it there that half time.
No. What? Yeah. I've told you that.
Yeah. So Joe, good for you, Joe. Good for you. Relinquish control. I had another emailer who said, we have a veto system. My wife makes the decisions, and I'm allowed to veto. We've been together 6 years. I haven't vetoed once.
He's saving it up.
Yeah. Well, he said, "Listen, if I veto a lot, there's really no power shift going on here."
No, it's not that complicated. In my marriage, I get voted down 1-to-1 all the time.
Absolutely right.
We're Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today. Find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. A little more reaction to the conversations we were having. Then I want to bounce a whole other story.
All right.
Off of you. My buddy Ted Bishop, who's the president of the PGA of America,
yes, he is,
and who loves nothing more than to send me pictures of him golfing with like the most famous and important people in the world.
And I know you love talking about him because he's a golf guy who could do good things for you.
And he does do good things for me. But one way or another, he is also a crazy fan of all the Indianapolis sports teams.
Sure.
And as we were just having our discussion about the balance of power in the East, he wrote me a note that said, "Really? Did Indiana get moved out of the Eastern Conference while I was in Scotland?"
Seriously, Ted? Ted. Right now, Ted. Put Kevin Love on either the Chicago Bulls or the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't care which team, Ted. Now I want you to take your massive fortune, which I'm sure he may have.
He doesn't have a massive fortune. If he has a massive fortune, he needs to start picking up a check.
What? Oh, there goes that next round.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Ted, whatever fortune you have, go bet it on your Pacers. Would you? Would you bet it on your Pacers over Kevin Love on the Bulls or on the Cavaliers? Would you do that? I know your heart says you're a Pacer fan, but if you had to put real money on it, if you had to really bet something that could affect you, would you really put it on the Pacers? Really, Ted?
Let me ask you a question.
I don't think you would.
The departure of Lance Stevenson, how much of a factor is that in what you're saying? If Stevenson hadn't left, I'm reading a story, by the way, that Roy Hibbert had dinner with Larry Bird and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They're trying to figure out a way to make Hibbert a totally different player.
Well, remember, we had heard weeks ago they were quietly trying to move him. That was a report anyway. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. So now, it's dude, get better. Get going to where we thought you were going to get going.
So, but I guess my question to you is, I'm checking here if I got distracted. I'm checking.
So Lance Stevenson, if Lance was
because you're having a conversation with a person who's not in the discussion, and the only conduit is my inbox.
If Lance was still there, I would still go to the team that Kevin Love is going to. I still would. I mean, listen, I have said about the Pacers, I think of this group anyway, I was hanging on longer than everybody else during the playoffs of trying to give them the benefit of the doubt that I thought they were going to make a little bit of a comeback, and they still got to where they got to the conference championship, albeit in a very weak conference. But, I mean, they haven't lived up. If they do, could they be back there? Yes, they can, but I don't have a ton of confidence right now. Lance Stevenson's gone, so forget the what-ifs. And even without Kevin Love, I'm not favoring the Pacers. I still put it to the Cavaliers. And if Derek and Paul Gasol goes to Chicago, if Derrick Rose comes back healthy, I'd probably take them as well. So I would, Ted, I'm sorry. An amount of money that you don't want to lose, you're gonna put it on the Pacers to come out of the East? I may want to make that bet with you.
Well, we'll find out. One way or another, he hasn't responded. So
he will.
You've shouted him down.
He will.
The other story I wanted to get in very quickly here is it appears that the biggest job in sports is about to be filled, and once again, it's not going to be filled by me.
Let's talk to you, Mr. Manfred, on ESPN Radio, Mike and Mike Show, yesterday.
It really didn't matter whatever has happened yesterday. We were just so thrilled that Congressman Elijah Cummings of Maryland, when he was questioning Rob Manfred during those the legendary steroid hearings of 2000 and whatever year that was, he mentioned us.
Yes, he did.
We were ecstatic with that.
Yeah, we don't know what he said after he mentioned
The last
us.
time I saw Rob Manfred, by the way, I mentioned that to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm glad you keep bringing that up.
Yeah,
it was one of my favorite moments." But one way or another, it is appearing now, if you sort of read the tea leaves, that Rob Manfred is going to succeed Bud Selig as the next commissioner of baseball. They wanted Steve Greenberg, which to me means they were close. They were just off by one name.
Right.
Parenthetically, my son's name is Steve Greenberg, but he's 11.
Yeah.
So I doubt that they're looking to hire him as the commissioner of baseball. They could have hired me as the commissioner of baseball. I would have done it for sure. They seem to have moved past me for reasons known only to them. To Rob Manfred, a story by Craig Calcaterra on Hardball Talk says it appears clear that I'll just read it to you in its entirety. For years, Bud Selig's presumed heir as commissioner was Rob Manfred. He handled CBA negotiations several times. Selig made him the COO last year. He was made A-Rod's executioner. Seemed he was handpicked. Then we entered a somewhat extended period in which others were rumored to be of interest, and some owners did not seem all that enamored of Bud picking his successor because, after all, the commissioner works for the owners. Now, however, it seems like that uncertain period is over. Maybe it was due diligence. Maybe it was optics. Or maybe Manfred really has all the support he needs and has had it for some time, but it sure sounds like he's the next man for the job. So there's Craig Calcaterra writing, it appears to him that Rob Manfred, the current COO, and God has been in the front office of baseball forever, is going to succeed Selig as the commissioner.
As much as people talked about going outside of baseball, whether it's to boardrooms somewhere else or to baseball guys outside of, the league office, I think there were those that always thought it would eventually get back to somebody who had been involved in baseball at the office point for a while, and so I don't think that's much of a surprise. Do you?
So that they're going to hire him?
Yeah,
a little bit.
You do, really?
Yes, I thought they were. If in my mind, thought there was going to be a sort of a more esoteric Steve Greenberg would have been the kind of person I would have thought.
CEO type,
someone kind of outside the box.
CEO type outside of baseball.
That's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
I thought that
maybe,
guy. Look, are things going well? Absolutely. We had Bud on last week was in Minnesota?
Yeah, last Monday.
Time doesn't go by so fast.
Yeah.
Last week, baseball is making money hand over fist. Huge parts of their business are going extraordinarily well. There are some challenges that face the sport. There are some challenges that face all businesses.
Yeah.
That I personally think, this is not a statement about Rob Manfred, whom I know only a little, but I think he's a very smart guy. He's obviously a very dedicated guy, and I'm sure he'll do a very good job. But he is, my feeling is he sort of is following the same path. I think there is might be time for some new thinking. I think someone who comes in a little outside the box.
Well, I mean,
would be a good idea.
Their thought may be things are going really well. Let's just keep them going how they're going.
Because the owners are making a fortune.
Yeah,
they're making a fortune.
And at the end of the day, let's not mess around here. That's what it's about. How much money they're putting in their pockets. Okay, when you start talking about any kind of deals for owners, the first question is how much am I getting? And I'm not saying that in a bad way. They have every right to try and make money, but how much? What's staying in our pockets? Make sure you're not making any decisions where money's, God forbid, leaving our pockets. And it's going well right now, so maybe they just want to continue on that hamster wheel, and it'd be tough to blame them.
I really wanted that job. I really did. I mean, all kidding aside, did I ever think I was going to get that job? No. But it was really fun to at least have this one, ridiculous thought in the back of my head that all during this time, somewhere along the line, someone might one day I might pick up the phone out of nowhere. I mean, completely unexpectedly. And, it's Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm just making this up. Not that Jerry Reinsdorf has my phone number. But, I mean, it's someone like that. And he says to me, Mike, yeah, we'd like to talk to you about something. And the next thing you know, out of nowhere, it's like the upset to end all upsets. I actually am the commissioner of baseball. And I actually have a real important job. That I wear a suit to, and I have I have a staff.
See, there's one of the things we really differ on. I am so happy I don't have to wear a suit.
I know,
work.
but I would.
And a staff would just get.
It's been a long time doing this. I'd like a real job. I need to do something real.
Let me ask you a question. Did you really think about that? Did you really have a moment in your mind where you imagined somebody called you from the league to ask you about being the commissioner?
I had more than a moment.
Really?
I had multiple moments. Did I ever think it was going to happen? No, of course not.
Okay.
No, I never for one second.
But you dreamed it.
Oh, many times. I'm still dreaming it.
Okay.
I'm still dreaming someday someone is going to call me with an offer of a real job. I'm going to do something real rather than just make dopey jokes on the radio every single day.
So what you're saying is you're unhappy?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. By the way, I've got a good note here from D. Boudreau.
D. Boudreau.
Who writes to us when we were talking about marriage. Yeah. He writes, guys, I've been unlucky in both my marriages. My first wife left me, and my second wife won't.
Oh.
I just thought that was funny, and it was funny enough that it just distracted me for the last 2 or 3 minutes. All right, I didn't even get to the thing that I want to get to here, so let's do that. Let's take 1 minute for Nature Box, and then the topic is fairness. This is not about Michael Sam. The subject is fairness, and I'm really curious to hear your perspective. We've been sitting next to each other a really long time.
Okay.
And long enough that I think, like as is the case with my wife. Well, let's do the read, and then I'll explain to you how in this one way, you and my wife have one very big thing in common. And I will do that right after this word from Nature Box. Every single day we ask ourselves, what's in Golik's Nature Box? He loves all the different snacks that they provide. And today I'm going to say Golik is going with apple pie oat cluster.
Love so many of them, but the apple pie oat cluster is fantastic. A combination of apple pie, crunchy oatmeal cookies. That's the taste. It's absolutely amazing. Nature Box, the online store for those who love snacking but care about what you eat. Nature Box features over 120 spicy and savory snacks that no way, gang, you're going to find in stores. And you may eat an entire bag. I've been known to do that, but you don't feel like you got to go hit the gym after that, and you really don't. Hit naturebox.com/Mike. Select your snack choices. Drop them into your Nature Box. The entire family is going to love them, and they ship for free. naturebox.com/Mike. Enter the promo code Mike to get half off your first Nature Box. So that's 50% off the first box. Shipping is always free. Go to it right now. naturebox.com/Mike. Okay. So people have for years called us an old married couple. Mm-hmm. And there's really only one way in which you remind me of my wife, and that is that while I don't always understand why you're going to react to something the way you do, I usually can predict how you're going to react to something. Okay.
I don't for the life of me understand you most of the time.
Right.
But at least I find you predictable, if not understandable.
Okay.
This is one of those very rare cases where I'm going to ask you a question, and I honestly don't know which way I think you're going to react.
All right.
And that's why I'm looking forward to it. Bob Bowlesby is the commissioner of the Big 12. He was on with us yesterday, and we both found him to be a very smart guy.
Absolutely.
And we enjoyed the conversation. And we were talking largely about his comments of the other day where he said he thinks that cheating at this point on some level pays in college sports. Mm-hmm. It's worth doing because the enforcement is so bad and all the rest of that.
It's a slap on the wrist compared to your benefit you could get from it.
That was the topic of our conversation with him. So we didn't really get into this. But in the story that was written about it, he talked more about other things as well, including the current collegiate model, which you know is something you and I have some different views on. Maybe not as different as you sometimes think they are, but whatever. We have differing views.
Okay.
And here's what he said. Bowlesby came to the defense of the collegiate model, which has come under criticism. He argued against the unionization of college athletes, noting that in his opinion, student athletes are not employees. He also said it wouldn't be fair to pay football players, but not female student athletes and other student athletes in sports other than football and men's basketball. And here's the quote. It is hard to justify paying student athletes in football and men's basketball and not recognizing the significant effort that swimmers and wrestlers and lacrosse players and track athletes all put in. Football and basketball players don't work any harder than anybody else. They just happen to have the blessing of an adoring public who is willing to pay for the tickets and willing to buy the products on television that come with the high visibility. We have both a legal obligation and a moral obligation to do for female student athletes and male Olympic sports athletes just exactly what we do for football and basketball student athletes. I don't think it's even debatable. That's the quote from Bob Bowlesby.
Okay.
Now, let me just throw out there a little comparison.
All right.
My mother was a third-grade teacher in the New York City public school system for 25 years.
Right.
Okay? I don't think there's any question that on any given day of those 25 years, no one would argue she didn't work harder than I do. She taught at PS 11 on 21st Street and 8th Avenue. She had no assistant teacher, and she probably had 32 kids in her class every single day, teaching them to read, write, whatever it is you're teaching in third grade. There's no question she worked harder than I do. There was never a year in her entire life, in her 25th year, where she made as much money as someone like you or I make in a month. Never. Right? That's just the world we live in.
Agreed.
Is that fair? Did she work harder than us? Why? Because we have the blessing of an adoring public, maybe not as adoring, but you know what I mean, who is willing to pay for the tickets and willing to buy the products on television that come with the high visibility. You and I and people like us and people who make far more money than us get paid what we get paid because of the circumstances. If you happen to have a skill that is marketable and it happens to be marketable in an area that is lucrative, you're very lucky in life.
Right.
And if your skill is in an area that is not very lucrative, you might argue you're not quite as lucky because it isn't generating money. So my question to you is, do you agree with Bob Bowlesby that there is a moral obligation to do for female student athletes and male Olympic sports athletes exactly what they do for football and basketball student athletes, and that it's not even debatable?
As far as what? Stipends?
Anything.
Money?
Literally anything. They are not treated differently. They're not allowed to be treated differently on any level, right? I mean, basically they're not.
Basically they're not. Yes, I agree with that. Because what you made the comparison to is a teacher and our job, and Bowlesby is saying right there, these aren't jobs. They're not employees. We're employees. Your mother was an employee. These aren't employees. So we can't treat it like their jobs and their employees. So we're saying they're all student athletes. They're on scholarship, so they're treated the same as others. You can find, so I think in the general plan, they should all be treated exactly the same. If you then want to start changing things and start giving money for likeness and start to do things like that, that's obviously going to sway it toward a football and a basketball player, and that's fine. They may end up getting more. But the general plan, stipends and things like that, I think have to be the same. Yes, absolutely, positively, 100% yes. Because they're going to school. It's not considered a job. They're not considered employees by the schools. You can think whatever you want, and that's fine, but they're not. They are working just as hard. There have been many football players at Notre Dame who have seen Sydney and her teammates practice and say, you work harder than we do. And
Sydney's a swimmer, for those who don't know.
My daughter's a swimmer at Notre Dame. You guys work harder than we do. Even forgetting that. They all work hard. They all put in their 20 hours or more at times, as we know. So, yes, I think in the general plan, they need to be treated the same. There may be things you can put into place that would give the ones that make more money some more, like a likeness type situation, if we get to that. But in general, I absolutely agree with that.
It's an interesting question. So I'd like to ask it to you today. If you're listening to us or watching us this morning, you can respond in a number of ways. Our chatter lines are open right now, 740-535-MIKE. That's 740-535-6453. In fact, you want to take calls on this? We have next, but let's change that. Let's not do chatter on that. Let's take phone calls on this right now. Give me the phone number again. I want to make sure I say it right because they got to spell out ESPN. For starters, we can take your reaction on Twitter. on Twitter through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, or even just because. Visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN for special deals on flowers and gifts starting at $29.99. So my question on Twitter this morning is, do you think that it is a moral obligation? He uses the words legal and moral obligation. Let's not get into whether there's a legal obligation.
Right.
Because that opens up a whole other can of worms. Let's just get into a moral obligation. Do you believe universities, big-time athletics, have a moral obligation to do for female student athletes and male Olympic sports athletes, track and field, fencing, diving, swimming, whatever the others are, exactly what they do for football and basketball student athletes? We'll open up the phones as well next at 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776.
One of the first emails I got, apples and oranges. The major sports are more competitive, dangerous, and demand more. This from Mark. Mark, have you ever played a sport in your life? To say that football and basketball, those are the two, are more competitive, dangerous, and demand more? Have you seen swimmers with how they practice? Lacrosse, hockey? I can't even believe you would make that statement. I'm sorry. You're allowed to have your opinion, and I couldn't as strongly disagree with how hard athletes in the other sports work. And last I checked, hockey can be a pretty dangerous sport. Have you watched the lacrosse game and seen the hitting that goes on there? Can be a pretty dangerous sport. They're all competitive. Two sports make way more money than the other sports. Absolutely, positively right. But as far as preparation, sorry, don't separate those two sports from the other sports.
888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. We'll take your calls next, Mike and Mike. And his side is making in court. The response from Pierce O'Donnell, who was the attorney for Shelley Sterling, is Donald's latest lawsuit is a frivolous last-ditch act of desperation by a delusional, bitter man. This action shows once more how obsessed he is with ruining a record-setting $2 billion sale of the Los Angeles Clippers, a sale that would solve the problems his racist rant started 3 months ago. As testimony established today, head coach Doc Rivers doesn't want to coach for him, the players don't want to play for him, the season ticket holders are about to bolt, and the major sponsors aren't willing to spend another dime until there's a new owner. As Clippers CEO Dick Parsons made clear on the witness stand, Donald's continuing ownership will put the franchise into a death spiral. That is the statement from Shelley's attorney. Golick Donald Sterling has filed suit. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's no shock. I think we said this way. We were almost more stunned when, for that brief 30-minute period, he said he was backing away from everything and letting everything just kind of happen, right? We were like, really? Donald Sterling? And then, he became Donald Sterling, and who's lived in a courtroom and lived in lawsuits. He's basically suing everybody, and he's going to continue to sue everybody. And this is, I guess a lot of it is where it's going to end up, Greeny, because Doc Rivers, the players, the sponsors, the season ticket holders, they can't, in my opinion, they can't fault the NBA for this. The NBA has, Adam Silver came out and became one of the few commissioners that wherever his name gets brought up, gets cheered all the time because he put his foot down and suspended Sterling for life. He said, you're done. You're done. But now this is out of his hands. This is all in the courts. So Adam Silver can do nothing. The league can't do anything anymore because it's in the courts. So all these decisions that are going to be made by Doc Rivers, by players, by sponsors, by season ticket holders, I will be curious to see what they do, because it won't be, you can't say, well, the NBA didn't do enough, can you? At least in my opinion, you can't. Because I don't know where this will end up. If he wins everything in court, is he still banned from the league? I mean, do those two mesh somewhere? Or does he get that overturned as well in court? I have no idea if he can or can't. But we knew it was going to be tied up in court, and it still may be in court by the time the season starts. Quite honestly, this would be just me. If I had the wherewithal to say, if he's still the owner, I don't want to be there. If this thing is in court, I would have a hard time saying I'm not coaching this team. Would you agree or disagree with that?
That's the point I was trying to make.
I would have a very hard time if I were Doc Rivers or a coach that said, if he owns this team, I'm not coaching. If this thing were still in the courts, which it very well may be, I don't think I could say, well, I'm bailing on this team when this team tried to oust this guy and the league tried to oust this guy, and he has it tied up in the courts now. I'm not leaving this team.
I guess I think the point that I was trying to make is that what I think he's saying is if the outcome of this were to be such that Sterling maintained control of the team,
right,
that he wouldn't want to be a part of it. And that's the argument the lawyer is making, is if we don't get this team away from him, all the good stuff that that is happening is going to go away. The coach doesn't want to coach, the players don't want to play, the sponsors don't want to pay, and all the season ticket holders are going to bail like crazy. I've got to find Ramona. If you're interested in this story, you should be following Ramona Shelburne on Twitter from ESPNLosAngeles.com. She's very good, and I want to make sure I read the tweet that she sent out exactly right, because there was one that the way she framed it, that made me a little nervous about the possibility that Ballmer could become nervous for all this, that Ballmer could basically at some point decide, here it is, it'll be up to Ballmer if he wants to press forward with the sale despite Donald's outstanding lawsuits and threat of appeal.
Right.
Basically, Steve Ballmer is a billionaire who, while he obviously wants to own the Clippers and was willing to spend $2 billion on it, might at some point just say, you know what, I'm done with this. I mean, this is going to go on forever. It's taking up a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's just not worth it.
And is whoever was bidding with him, are they going to jump in when this is in court? See, that's the thing. And all you want to say about Donald Sterling, one thing you have to give him credit for is as a businessman, correct? You may not like the way he runs his business, but the guy knew how to make money, right? I have to believe, look at the long run of this, Greeny. If he were to keep fighting this and keep control of the team, and not so much Doc Rivers, but I guess Doc Rivers, if sponsors bailed, if season ticket holders canceled their season tickets, now what has he done? Now he's affected the value of the team. What did he say? Ballmer bought it for $2 million. I could get someone to pay $2.5 billion to $5 billion. Well, you know what? If all your sponsors leave and your season ticket holders start canceling their season tickets, guess what's happening to the value of your team?
Now, let me just throw a different thought at you here, though. He's 80 years old. He's got much more money than he's ever going to need anyway. So does he really care if it diminishes the value of the team? I think he just wants to fight.
Spite? You think this is just spite?
Look, I've never met the man in my life. I can't testify to that, but that's what I think.
Even if he devalues a team.
What does he care? He's devaluing something that he's now suing people over. The people who are going to inherit the team when he dies either way are going to be, if he's still in ownership, are going to be Shelley and the family trust, and he's suing them.
No, I know.
So he doesn't seem all that worried about them.
I don't know. He's a businessman who makes money and says he could get a lot more for this team. So I don't know if he truly is trying to devalue the team.
Ramona also tweeted, Donald's lawyers made it very clear today, this is from yesterday, he wants the NBA to try and terminate him and sell the team because it opens up his antitrust suit. So he's got other tricks up his sleeve.
Oh, absolutely.
Who knows what they are? Look, he's a man who at this point in his life, who has made it clear he likes to fight.
Yep.
And feels he's been wronged here on whatever level he feels that. I don't think there's any reason to think he's going to stop fighting. He's just going to fight every way he can.
I said this from the beginning.
For the sake of fighting itself.
Yeah, I know. I agree. He's going to throw every dart he has because this is what he does. And I have no idea. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea where this is going to end up in courts. There's so many tentacles to this thing. But that one that she brings up is right. Will Ballmer eventually bail, or will he ride this out?
I'm just going to read you this series of tweets because it's all pretty good here. She writes, Ramona Shelburne is tweeting this. Time frame in Sterling trial. Last day of testimony is Wednesday. Closing arguments Monday. If judge rules for Shelley, Donald could appeal. So it would be up to Ballmer if he wants to press forward with the sale despite Donald's outstanding lawsuits and threat of appeal. Shelley and Ballmer's side have been pressing for a ruling that is, quote, appeal-proof, but that's difficult to create. It's becoming obvious Donald's strategy is to take on the NBA. That's the fight he wants. So he's trying to undo this private sale to Ballmer. It's always been cleaner for all involved to do a private sale. Termination and forced sale opens up all sorts of legal issues. So if you interpret what she's saying, that's a series of tweets from Ramona Shelburne. She's saying that Sterling is just trying to make this so complicated that Ballmer walks away.
Right.
The NBA then has to go back to what it didn't want to do, which is the owners have to vote him out.
Right.
Remember, they got around that. They never had to do that. The sale went by so fast. And once they do that, he feels he has grounds to sue them based on antitrust and other things. You're getting into legal areas in which neither you nor I are expert enough to fully understand. But it's easy from what Ramona is saying. That's what he wants. He wants to fight the NBA. Right. He needs to get rid of Ballmer to do it.
He needs to go through his wife and Ballmer to get to the NBA.
That's it. They're trying to sell it. and that way the NBA, and if they do go back to the NBA and the NBA votes him out, he feels he's got a whole other level of fight to have.
He's got to win some battles even to get to the war before he can win the war.
What do you think? I mean,
I think this is no surprise at all. I don't think there was any doubt he was going to throw a grenade into this thing for as long as he possibly could. And it's tough to think that anything. I don't know how quickly this moves along, because some things you see move along quickly, others take forever. So if this thing bleeds into the regular season, where are we? Where are we with this team?
That's right. And does the NBA wind up having to vote him out? The real question now seems to be, does Steve Ballmer walk away? Does Steve Ballmer say, you know what, this just isn't worth the aggravation that I'm dealing with?
Right.
It could take, who knows, this, as you just said, this could take another year or two. Does he feel like dealing with this? He's a man with $20 billion. If he walks away, it changes the dynamic. We're Mike and Mike reminding you, NFL training camps are underway. Don't miss SportsCenter's coverage of all 32 teams in 10 days. Today, SportsCenter is live with the Cowboys. Tomorrow, coverage continues with Denver, Washington, and Cincinnati. Jeff Fisher is the coach of the Rams. He's the coach of Michael Sam. Has it been a distraction? We'll ask him next. Mike and Mike. Brought to you by Mazda.
Improve your road game. Mazda is the only automaker to have 2 sedans on this year's Car and Driver's 10 Best, the Mazda 3 and Mazda 6. Combine the performance you want with the efficiency you need.
Football, it's going to be hard, yeah. I mean, it is for everybody. I mean, you know, your first NFL camp is quite an adjustment, and it's very competitive.
That was Jeff Fisher some time ago from the Herd in May here on ESPN Radio, talking about bringing in Michael Sam and how hard it was going to be for him. And you heard him say it's hard for everybody, but it's a little harder for Sam, especially when you have things like have happened over the last couple of days where Tony Dungy saying in the Tampa Tribune that he wouldn't have wanted to draft Michael Sam because of the distraction it would create. Michael Sam reacted yesterday.
Thank God he wasn't St. Louis Rams coach. but I have a great respect for Coach Dungy, and like everyone in America, everyone has entitled their own opinions. My focus is on making this team.
That's what he said. Let's find out what his coach says. Jeff Fisher, the head coach of the St. Louis Rams, joins us on Mike and Mike. How are you this morning, Coach?
I'm doing good, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. And obviously the first question, we know the training camp hasn't even begun, so much of whatever is to come is to come. But at least to this point, has Michael Sam's presence in any way been a distraction to you or to the football team?
You know, absolutely not. And I mean, I think let's define distraction. You know, there was a couple extra cameras that, during the early OTAs. There may have been an extra camera yesterday as the rookies reported and went on the field for the first time. But no, it's not. Mike's a very passionate athlete. He's very focused on trying to make this football team. And you obviously, he comes back with the rest of his rookie class yesterday, and they go through a conditioning test, and they all killed it. It was great to see. He worked really hard during the summer, and no, he's doing a good job. He's like the rest of them. We let, unfortunately, part of this business is releasing players and upgrading a roster and so on and so forth. And, we let 3 players go yesterday that really have only been here for, probably a month. And they're better football players when we let them go yesterday than they were when we've signed them. And that's where Mike is right now. He's a better football player because he's committed himself to trying to make this football team.
And I want to get into your team because I know exactly where I would stand if I were watching one of your practices, and we'll get to that in a minute. But we do use that word distraction, and you and I both know it's not so much the beat writers that are around all the time. So for you in the start of camp, do you know if there have been requests from the entities outside of the sports world that want to be there? Because that's where you start to get the different kind of questions involved, and will it lead to something? So how much of that has been going on, and you think will go on?
No, I don't anticipate it. We had one discussion with the Oprah Winfrey Network, and we all agreed to postpone the piece, and they did because we wanted Mike to be able to focus on making this football team. But that's really been just about it. It's not. He's one of 90 players on our roster right now, and he's one of 30 or so rookies that are trying to make this football team.
And are you going to put any type of media restrictions out there at all in camp because of this?
No, Mike, we're not. I'm not treating him any differently than anybody else on this team. They're all going to be available. He's going to be available. He handles himself well. I think his response to Tony's stuff, yesterday was heartfelt and honest. And again, it's interesting that and Mike, how you've been inside a building in different buildings on different teams, and it's different inside the building than the perception is outside. And Michael Sam is, he's one of 14 defensive linemen we have on the roster. It's going to be very, very competitive at this position, as everybody knows. I think people realized, during the draft, that was one of the strengths of our football teams is the defensive line, especially the defensive end position. Why would we do that? Well, he was the best athlete on the board, and we wanted to give him an opportunity.
Mike and Jeff Fisher, one more on this, and that would just be, Tony Dungy. Obviously, you've coached against him for a really long time. What was your reaction to what Tony said?
Well, I didn't pay real close attention to it. Obviously we're real busy here at camp. I'm going to assume that maybe some things were taken out of context, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And, coaches are going to have differences of opinions during the draft. And, we'll look at another team, perhaps one of the divisions, say, well, I wouldn't have taken that guy. I would have taken this guy, and for whatever the reasons are. So I'm not concerned. Tony's entitled to his opinion, as everybody is, and so are we. And, right now we think we have a pretty good thing going. And, with respect to Mike, hey, you know what? We want to give Michael every opportunity, like I said, over and over to try to make this football team.
So, all right, let's get to the team, and I'm not going to start at the quarterback position, even though that's obviously an unbelievable important position. If I'm at your practice, and I'm not saying that because I have an O lineman for a son and I was a D lineman, I'm watching one-on-one. Because we talked about your guys' draft and getting Robinson. It looks like he'll start at guard for you, and Aaron Donald, the kid on the defensive tackle. One-on-one, you get Long back at left tackle. You have Robinson. You have Wells at center. Saffold at guard. Barksdale at tackle. You got Quinn, who had all the sacks last year. Chris Long on the outside. I love Brockers in the middle as well. Aaron Donald. The plethora of talent you seem to have on the line, at least on paper, and now we've seen some production, certainly out of some of those, the rookies, is incredible. It is going to really, really be fun to watch.
Well, it's, we had to start there. A couple of years ago, obviously, you take a glance at the division, and you look at the fronts, in the division, and all three teams, and in order to be competitive in the division, you've got to upgrade those positions. And so we've done so, and we feel good about it. Now we'll keep everybody healthy and get through camp and watch them play in the preseason and get going. But it's that part of the practice field, Mike, that you do want to wander on down and watch it, because it's gonna, they're only going to make each other better. You watch Rob Quinn even last year work with Jake Long. The two of them made each other much better, just from a competitive standpoint on the practice field.
And then we will go to the quarterback position, and Sam Bradford coming off the knee injury, and just where he is and where, I know you just look at this year, but what it looks like for Sam Bradford and his future.
Well, he's healthy. He's going to participate in camp, and if he does not play in a preseason game early, it's because we decided not to put him in. He's able to participate now. I would say he's 100%. He had a great summer, had a great spring. He participated in the OTAs, and he's really excited about the future. And I think more importantly, he's excited about the players around him. When you talk about Jared Cook and you talk about, Kendricks and then Tavon Austin, Stephen Bailey, we've got a good group of people around him, and he's excited about that.
And Jeff, since you were my defensive coordinator when we were in Philadelphia together, my talents. If I were on your team right now, which interior D lineman would have to go to the bench?
Well, first off, I would venture to say you probably wouldn't have passed the conditioning test. So that might have been hard. You remember that, Mike? Remember running those 880s?
Listen, I do. And quite honestly, Jeff, I will toot my own horn here. When Albert Hainsworth flunked his test a couple of years ago, I did it here for NFL Live just a couple of years ago when I was 49, and I made it. I almost threw up, but I made it.
Yeah. Well, I know, Clyde Simmons is on our staff, and we were talking about those old conditioning tests yesterday and how grueling they were and how they really had nothing to do with playing ball. But, again, it was really good to see our rookies they came out and killed the test. So, but, yeah, I think if I were to plug you in on the depth chart, you probably would. Are you talking about now, or are you talking about back then at your prime?
I think when I was at the apex of my career.
There you go. Okay. I'd say you'd probably be, maybe fourth or fifth tackle here.
Yeah, it's time for you to go.
I think that's being kind. Jeff Fisher, thank you very much. As always, good luck as you get camp underway.
Great talking to you guys.
Take care, Jeff.
That's
Jeff Fisher with us on Mike and Mike. Always available whenever we need him and answering the questions with no hesitation whatsoever about Michael Sam, which was exactly what we expected. Back in the flash on Mike and Mike after a word from La Quinta. Mike, ask any big leaguer who's ever faced a 90-mile-an-hour fastball what baseball is about. He'll tell you it's all about being ready. Just like business travelers who take being ready to the next level with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Just book at LQ.com. On the day of your arrival, La Quinta will send a ready-for-you alert the second your room is ready. So after a long day of business hardball, you know that a pillow top bed is ready for that seventh inning stretch. The Ready For You alert only at LQ.com. La Quinta is ready for you, so you will be ready for business. We're back in a flash on Mike and Mike.
The best close shave.
All right, Mike and Mike, and it's time for next question, which is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day. Our researcher extraordinaire is Kristen Balboni. We call her Balbiz. She goes through all the emails, texts, and tweets that you've been sending us all morning long and picks out the one she thinks makes the most interesting questions. Good morning, Balbiz.
Good morning.
What did you think of the college sports discussion?
I thought it was a great discussion. I thought it's one of those things that you could continue to talk about, and there would be new points, better points. The one you just brought up I thought was great. And I agree with Golick in the situation. So
I don't think there's really ever going to be a concrete answer until these 5 conferences either break off by themselves or work with the NCAA for a new system.
Do you think they're going to break off?
No, I do not. I do not think they're going to break off. I think they're going to get to do a lot of things they want to do, but I think it's going to be the NCAA basically saying, okay, stay part of us, but you can have a little more power.
All right, let's go around the world of sports. Balbiz, first question.
Okay, we just had Jeff Fisher on the big topic of the day, and so what we want to know is, at this point, could the Rams cut Michael Sam without criticism?
No, there'll be criticism, but I'm not saying it will be just if, let me put it this way, if Jeff Fisher cuts Michael Sam, it will be because he doesn't think Michael Sam is one of the best 53 players on that team or the 8 that could go on the practice squad. And that's it. I've known Jeff a long time. That's what he will do. But there will be people, no matter what, that will criticize and say he was cut because he was gay.
I agree with you that there will be the criticism, and I agree that it will be unfair. I think Jeff Fisher has proved, if you go back to the statements that he made the day he made the decision to draft Sam, he wanted to do this. He wanted to give the kid a chance. He wanted to be the one, to be the team that made this statement. But his job, his fiduciary responsibility, is to put the 53 best players on the field. And if the kid isn't good enough to be one, then I am enormously supportive of the idea that openly gay players should have be treated completely fairly within sports. And part of that is, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Mm-hmm. If he's not good enough, he shouldn't be on the team. I hope that he's good enough. I hope that he's good enough to be on the teams. I think it would be a good thing. But if he's not good enough, then Fisher has to do what he has to do. And criticism would be unfair. Right. Next question.
Okay, in your heart of hearts, deep down, where do you think Kevin Love will end up?
Cleveland. I think in Cleveland, because I think at the end of all of this, Minnesota will want Wiggins. I think that's the piece they want. You know, we're talking about Taj Gibson and Butler in Chicago, Wiggins and Bennett, their number 1 pick the year before. And they'll get other number 1 picks. But I think Wiggins, and I don't know if they'll ever admit it because it's a leverage play, so you're trying to get as much as you can. But I think eventually they'll want to say, okay, we're going to lose Love. We want to get Wiggins because we think of the potential there.
Do you think Golden State's just done with this, or do you think they're sort of waiting in the bushes?
I think they're done. I think it's Cleveland or Chicago, and I think it's skewed toward Cleveland.
I think before the whole thing with LeBron, I always felt that Golden State was where Love wanted to go.
Right.
Now that he'll sign with Cleveland, there's probably nothing Golden State could offer, and it doesn't seem they're even willing to offer the best they can. That's going to match that, so I agree with you. I believe he will wind up in Cleveland. Next question.
Okay, same topic. Who would you rather have 3 years from now? Andrew Wiggins or Kevin Love?
Kevin Love.
Kevin Love.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years from now, Kevin Love is just 3 years from now, Kevin Love won't even be the age LeBron is now.
Yeah, he'll be
LeBron's
28.
29 and Love's 25, so 28 years old he'll be. He's a double-double machine.
Wiggins is what, 19?
I think
he's
so, yeah.
20 at the oldest.
No,
so
he's 19.
I would take Kevin Love.
Here's the thing. Andrew Wiggins, let's just do stats. And we know stats don't always tell the whole story. If Andrew Wiggins absolutely exceeds all of his expectations, it'd be a miracle if he put up Kevin Love's numbers. I mean, Kevin Love is 26-12.
Yeah.
How many players ever are 26-12?
I agree.
Now, I'm always a little wary about guys putting up huge numbers on really bad teams.
Well, exactly, and then going somewhere where he's not going to be the man. He's going to be a huge piece, but not the main piece.
So expect those numbers to go down,
Agree.
At least a little. That said, if Andrew Wiggins maximizes everything he might be, he still might not be Kevin Love. So, I mean, I'd be taking the sure bet. I would absolutely take Kevin Love. Next question.
Will Rory capture his career Grand Slam before Tiger gets another major?
Well, I mean, for the career Grand Slam, that's the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
So he has one more major before that, and then we're back to the Masters, correct? You got the PGA, and then we're back to the Masters.
PGA's at Valhalla next month.
And if you sit here and say right now, I don't think Tiger is winning the PGA. And then when we get to the Masters, I think Rory is going to be one of the favorites, if not a big-time favorite, with a good chance to win that. So I would say Rory. And I know if he doesn't win that, then you have to wait a whole year, and Tiger gets more chances at majors. But I'll say Rory.
Rephrase.
Will Rory capture his career Grand Slam, which means the Masters, before Tiger's wins any other
I was trying to remember exactly how it was phrased. I think I would bet a Rory. But it's a very good question because you're right. Once you get past, I wouldn't bet on Tiger to win this year's PGA.
Right.
But the one thing Rory has not been is he's not always been extraordinarily consistent at these majors. He misses cuts.
I agree with that.
So if he just doesn't have it that week, now Tiger's got 3 more shots. Four shots,
more
he could win that one too.
4 more.
I mean, even beyond this year's PGA.
Even after that Masters, he'd still have 4 more before he got back to the other 3 more.
But I'd make it 4 because he will play in that. He could win that Masters too.
He could.
So it's a very good question.
I'll say Rory.
If I had to bet on it, I would bet Rory. Next, Balbiz, next question.
Okay, this one, someone actually tweeted me this at PCooper253, and I loved it. What are you guys going to wager on your round of golf Thursday?
Well, here's the thing. Greeny and I are going to go. I only golf in these scrambles, charity scrambles, because I hate playing my own ball. But Greeny and I are golfing.
We have 2 golf games coming up with suits.
Yeah, with suits. And Greeny, while the suits don't want Greeny and I team together, Greeny wants me as a teammate because
I hate playing against you.
He doesn't want me not as a teammate because I drive him nuts.
In all candor, I am 4 shots better with you than I am without you. If I play with you as my teammate, I will shoot 4 shots better than I would shoot if I'm playing against you.
Golik, you get in his head.
He's a heckler. He's a nuisance.
While I agree with that,
he's a menace.
I would much rather not be on your team because I love heckling you.
But there's going to be money. We're going to play for money.
I know. So if I'm with somebody else and I heckle you and ruin your game, I'm still going to get the money.
Not necessarily.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what if my partner carries me?
I'll do something to your partner, you know.
You're going to heckle him, too?
Listen, there's wooded areas. Listen, driver to the knee. Someone's not finishing the round.
Driver in the knee.
Driver. And
you are threatening now to do bodily damage to major executives at ESPN.
This is what I plan to hear out of one of the major suits at ESPN, maybe on the 7th hole. Why? Why?
It's awful. Val Bismuth, next question. Thank you, Biz.
Thank you.
That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. We got to play together.
That's fine by me.
I want you on my team.
Okay.
I'm recruiting you for my team because I will play well enough to win if you are on my team.
I just want to play better than you.
That's fine by me, too. We're back in a flash.
Mike John Amici with us. The truth is, this Dungy thing is not surprising. He's going to have this kind of weird line, apparently just to keep himself in the news. People who still think that being gay is interesting are just so 19th century at this point.
Every team in the league passed up on Michael Sam. All 32 teams passed him through 6 rounds when he was rated as a 4th to 6th to 7th round pick. So everybody feels the same way as Tony Dungy does.
Are you going to put any type of media restrictions in camp because of this?
No, Mike, we're not. I'm not treating him any differently than anybody else on this team.
It's time for Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Yes, it is, presented by Progressive Insurance. That was Jeff Fisher, who joined us a half hour ago on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline with his thoughts on Michael Sam. He says it's been no distraction whatsoever to this point. He didn't get into a bone of contention with Tony Dungy in any way, but just generally said it's been no problem. He doesn't anticipate it being any problem. They've had a couple of extra cameras, but that's been about it. He did mention the Oprah Winfrey thing, which Tony Dungy alluded to in his statement of yesterday, that was one of the areas where he might have thought it would be a concern. Maybe that would have been a genuine distraction. I think largely this whole thing is much ado about nothing, and they got no practice. And he'll either be good enough to play on the football team or he won't be. And I think these things do get largely decided there. The one word Tony Dungy used in a statement over and over again that I like is the word merit. To me, sports is the ultimate meritocracy. I'm not sure we have anywhere else in our society, in our professional society, where things are as purely objective as they are there, which is to say, you and I might look at almost any two things differently. Politics come into play, and I'm not saying that doesn't ever happen in sports, but largely, the best guys make the team, right? The best players play. The guy who's the fastest and the strongest are the best ones up on the field, and the guy who isn't doesn't. That's meritocracy. I would think on some level that's how we would all want everything to work. And so I hope that's the way things work out for Michael Sam. If he's good enough to be a professional football player, I really hope he gets to be, because the fact that he is gay should have nothing to do with that.
Right.
And if he's not good enough, then on some level I would think even he would say, I don't want to be on the team just for that. That's not a good reason to put him on the team either.
It's not.
Someone else will come along who will be good enough.
And Jeff Fisher, and I think as most coaches, if they were coaching Michael Sam and didn't feel he was should be on the team and release him, they would do it based on football. And there will be others that will never believe that and say it was for other reasons. But this is the situation, and Jeff Fisher knows exactly the situation they are in, and he'll base his decisions on Michael Sam, the football player, as it should be done.
So there's that story. There's another one that just came through here, and that is that Bill Belichick has said Rob Gronkowski has been cleared by doctors. He is not being placed on the active PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, suggesting that Rob Gronkowski is, as of this moment, healthy enough to participate in practice and all activities. We've seen quotes from Gronkowski recently where he said his goal is to be ready for opening day, to be on the field opening day, and that's obviously a huge determining factor. To me, Gronkowski, if you take the quarterbacks out of the discussion, it's actually an interesting little exercise. Because at this point, the MVP of the league is a quarterback practically every year. Peterson won it that one year when he ran for 2,000 yards. But overwhelmingly, the quarterbacks are just by so far the most valuable players in the league. If you were just to eliminate the quarterbacks and do an MVP vote for everybody else, I would vote Gronkowski as valuable as any player in the league. The difference he makes, the difference that offense, the different way that offense looks when he's on the field versus when he's not, I'd think long and hard about giving him my vote.
I mean, Calvin Johnson would be up there. Gronkowski would be up there. Jimmy Graham could be up there as well. I'm with you. And the big question will be, what kind of Rob Gronkowski are you getting back? Because it's a guy who's gone through some injuries. There's no doubt about that. When he was on, he was unbelievable. And can he get all the way back to that now? If not, how close can he get to that? And can he stay on the field? That's going to be the key. And if he can, I mean, there's going to be nobody happier than Tom Brady. I guarantee you that.
Bez, can you pull up, what was the MVP voting last year? You can just see, like, who the top vote getters were. I know Peyton won it. But, like, who else got votes and all that kind of stuff? And just see who the highest rated non-quarterback was. It obviously isn't going to have been
I can't remember. Was LaShawn McCoy up there? He led the league in rushing.
Going to have a defensive player? I mean, was someone like one of the guys on Seattle, Richard Sherman?
I mean, you had Robert Mathis had 19.5 sacks. Josh Gordon was the leading receiver in yards, but you had Antonio Brown up there. Calvin Johnson up there as well as far as yards and catches.
These things tend to come from good teams, though. Most of those guys were not.
Right.
That you just named were not from good teams. I will pull it up for you in a second. I just think it's an interesting exercise. I think Gronkowski is that important. In fact, that one year that Brady had that huge season, if I had an MVP vote, which I do not, I would have given it to Gronkowski.
He obviously, well, listen, they don't have a lot of big-time wide receivers or players on that team outside of Tom Brady, so he's a huge difference maker. And that's why I said the big question will be, how does he come back from the injuries? And no one will be happier than Tom Brady.
Did I just get the voting? Is that it opening there? Peyton got 49 of 50 first-place votes. Scroll down there, just see if there's a place where he accepted the award, blah, blah, blah. Luke Kuechly seems to have been up there. Does it list the voting?
I saw LaShawn McCoy's name there, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll find it for you. We'll peruse through that a little more patiently, and we'll find the actual voting. We'll see one way or another.
But this is big that he can hit the ground running, though, and not have to start on the physically unable to perform. Hit the ground running, be right there, right off the bat.
You know, they're in Dallas today. SportsCenter is doing all 32 camps, and today SportsCenter is live at the Dallas camp. Your Fresh Take with Mike and Mike is always brought to you by Subway. Bread is on the rise at Subway. Subway, eat fresh. And I saw an interesting stat on the Cowboys coming into this season. Do you know what the last year they made the playoffs was? It was the 2009 season. 22 of the 32 NFL teams, or 31 in this case, because they're one of them, 22 of the other 31 teams in the league have made the playoffs more recently than the Cowboys. It's really remarkable. And you think about the attention, the star power, the quarterback, and everything else that they have there. And we know they've just been a 500 machine year after year. They go to the last week of the season with a chance to win and get in, and they lose every single time. I just thought that was, I think it was from Jean-Jacques Taylor. I had the piece set aside, and I didn't bring it in this morning because I didn't think we'd get to it. But I do remember that stat. 22 of the 31 other teams in the NFL have been in the playoffs more recently than the Cowboys.
Listen, I mean, they've look, well, we know over the last however many years they've been a 500 team. They've been a mediocre football team.
And they're going the wrong way right now.
Well, on defense, that to me is the biggest question. We both like Romo. Certainly Witten, the tight end, is still getting it done. Des Bryant, excellent wide receiver. You have 3 number 1 picks on that offensive line in Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, the center, and then the left tackle, Smith. So your offensive line should be much, much better because a couple of years ago it was certainly a weakness of that team. It should be a strength. Can they get a running game going? We'll see. But that defense, to me, there's a lot of worries there on that defense.
By the way, the NFL MVP voting, they only get 1 vote. 50 voters, they get 1 vote. 49 of them voted for Peyton. 1 of them voted for Tom Brady. So no non-quarterback, no non-quarterback got an MVP vote last year. Thank you. Okay, let me do the exercise this way. If I told you right now, Mike Golick, right now, July 23rd, camps are just barely opening.
Right.
That you have to bet an amount of money that really matters to you that one team will win its division. You have to just pick one team in the whole league and say that team is a lock to win its division this year. Is there anyone who wouldn't pick New England?
No, I don't think so.
Right?
It's immediately where I would go.
I think it's immediately where everybody would go.
Yes.
Don't you think? Is there anyone who wouldn't pick? Just look at the rest of the division.
I think the other place people may think about
is Denver.
I think the top 3 teams to think about that would be New England, Denver, and Indianapolis, quite honestly.
What was the first one? It would be New England, Denver,
Indianapolis.
Well, the AFC.
Yeah, and the NFC, I mean...
Here's the thing. But these things never work out the way they're supposed to, so one of those teams won't.
No, I get that, but you're asking, I mean, you're when you're talking about making a bet, you're talking about you're betting money so you want to win.
Right.
So this isn't the one where I'm going on.
New England would be first, Denver second.
Yes, I put Denver second.
Indy third. Eagles 4.
Man. Let's see. Yeah, probably, because that North, I lean to Green Bay, but
North is wide open. To me, the North is wide open. I could see any of I would not be at all surprised if Green Bay, Chicago, or Detroit won that division.
To me, NFC South is more wide open than the North, but they're both open. I agree with you, yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if any of the 4 teams in the NFC South wound up winning that division.
Agree with that. AFC North, I think, even though, Cincinnati won it clear by 3 last year, I think that's going to be
I think the NFC West is, without question, the best division in football. You had 3 teams last year with double-digit wins, and St. Louis is going to be good.
St. Louis
is a good team.
Listen, I agree with you.
The question with St. Louis is the quarterback, right? And the question is, we just had Jeff Fisher on. He's saying all the right things about Sam Bradford, but this is a make-or-break game for Sam Bradford.
Absolutely.
They have a playoff, maybe even better than just that. They have a dynamic football team on both sides of the line of scrimmage around him. Is the quarterback good enough to play the kind of football that team is otherwise capable of playing? That's the only question to me in St. Louis.
That's a big question. Yeah. Are we? I don't know if it's the only question.
They're ridiculously good on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
The lines, the wide receivers, we're not writing home about really a lot of that, quite honestly. The wide receivers in the running game aren't the greatest in the world, so it's not like Sam Bradford, you're like, oh, my God, look at the plethora of talent that he has to throw to. Last year your leading receiver was Jared Cook with 51 receptions.
No, they also had a lot of quarterback issues there. The quarterback tore up his knee.
They did, but my point is there aren't a ton of monster weapons there for Sam Bradford.
That's why another number I was looking at this morning as we sort of jump around a little bit quickly here, Josh Gordon led the league last year in receiving yards.
Missing 2 games.
Not only missing 2 games, and the quarterback was like a revolving door, right? I mean, you had I think 3 different guys or 4 different guys started games for them. The one who was playing well was Hoyer, who got hurt,
and he got hurt in his 3rd game starting.
That's what I'm saying. How many different guys started at quarterback?
Jason Campbell, Brandon Whedon, Brian Hoyer. So three
different starters.
3 different starters.
And they're moving around. Whether in, they're out.
Oh, no, listen, I agree with you.
His numbers were unbelievable.
St. Louis, the lines are excellent. We'll see on Bradford. I think Greg Williams back as the coordinator there. They're going to lean, I think, pretty heavily on that defense a bit, and we'll see what weapons can shine through for that offense.
One way or another, the beginning of this conversation was Rob Gronkowski cleared by New England's doctors. He is not going on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list. He will be able to participate in everything as training camp gets started. So good news if you're a Patriots fan. Good news if you're a football fan. I root against the Patriots, but I don't want to see Rob Gronkowski be hurt. He's too good a player. He's a guy who, I mean, with all the injuries he's had, you got to really worry that you'll never see him at his best again. So we'll see how that thing plays out. Charlie Strong, head coach of Texas, is going to join us in our studio coming up. J.J. Watt, superstar defensive end for the Texans, is going to join us in 1 minute after this word from Haynes, Mike, where we talk about people being in their comfort zone, and I guess we could use Gronkowski for that. Back and healthy and ready to go into the middle of that offense, putting himself and putting Tom Brady in a comfort zone, because there's nothing a quarterback in today's NFL likes better than a guy who can do damage in the middle of the field.
We always talk about the comfort zone, the security blanket for a quarterback is his tight end. But overall, for Tom Brady, it is Gronkowski. Without a doubt. You want to talk about, he is going to be, as I said before, the happiest person around is going to be Brady. So that is truly a comfort zone for him.
Hanes T-shirts, underwear, and socks with revolutionary X-Temp technology are designed to respond to your body temperature to help you keep your cool. Uncomfortable moments happen every day. Hanes X-Temp technology is with you all day, so it's there for you when you find yourself in an uncomfortable moment. Put revolutionary Hanes X-Temp technology to the test in your everyday life, because when you're cool, you're comfortable with Hanes. All right, we're Mike and Michael, presented by Progressive Insurance. It's our pleasure to welcome now on the Subway Fresh Steak Hotline. When we talk about players who aren't quarterbacks who you could easily vote for MVP of the league, this would certainly be where a lot of people would start. The superstar defensive end for the Houston Texans, J.J. Watt, is with us with camps getting underway on Mike and Mike. How are you, J.J.?
I'm doing great. How are you guys this morning?
We're doing very well. And it's interesting because we talk to coaches and we talk to players, and they have such a different perspective. We talked to Lovie Smith yesterday, head coach of the Buccaneers, and he's waxing rhapsodic about how excited he is to get training camp underway. And all I hear from Golick is that players dread this, that training camp is the most difficult time on the schedule. Are you excited, JJ, to be going to training camp?
I am excited. I will agree that it is obviously a difficult time. It's a grind. There's no question about it. But there's also no other time of the year where you're going to get as good as you're going to get in training camp. Every day is an opportunity to get better. So from the beginning of training camp until the end is where you're going to make some of your biggest improvements for the year. So obviously that's a very vital time. So I don't know really how you couldn't look forward to that.
And every player is in a different situation. So go back to when you got drafted in 2011. Now, you were a first-round pick, so a lot was expected out of you, but you were still a rookie. So you want to come in there and you want to show the league what you can do. And you've done that. You've shown the league what you can do. Now you've been in a few years. You're well established. So how mentally different is training camp to you as opposed to when you first got there as a rookie?
I think it's definitely different. As a rookie, like you said, you're coming in and you're trying to prove what you can do, and you're trying to earn your spot, basically. And now it's more of a game enhancement period for me. It's more, what can I focus on each day to get better at one individual skill, at this thing today? And then it's also, how can I help the young guys? How can I help a rookie come along? How can I help some of my other defensive line get better at their game? So I do look at it a little bit differently, but it's also the same thing. Every single day I'm trying to find a way to get better, trying to find a way to make my game go up to that next level.
And along those lines, you say help the younger players and the rookies. Well, you have one that would be on the line with you, Jadeveon Clowney, the number one pick in the draft. How have you been working and trying to help him so far?
Well, we just got back from a month away, so I've been up in Wisconsin training. The rookies have been down here throughout OTAs. I've done everything I can to help the rookies out, but for the most part, they kind of had a pretty full schedule. So I think going ahead will be my chance to really help the rookies out through training camp, just giving them little tips here and there on what they can do from a body standpoint to take care of themselves, because I think that's an often overlooked aspect of the game. It's just taking care of your body and doing the right thing with that. But then, watching film, out at practice, all the little things that I see, I can pass that information along and hopefully help them and give them some little tidbit of information that can help them become a great player.
Talking to J.J. Watt, defensive end for the Houston Texans, as just about some teams start at camp, others getting ready to get started in camp, all pretty much be going by the end of this week. Brian Cushing back again after another injury. Where is he? I know you guys are just getting back together, but you've certainly known him over the years. Where is he mentally? Physically, I'm sure he'll go back on the field and try and do his thing, but mentally, where is he from being injured a couple of times?
No, Ryan's he's a tough guy, and he's chomping at the bit to get back out there. Nobody likes to be injured. Obviously, it's a very difficult situation. But Brian's one of those guys that he can't wait to get back out there. He hates sitting in the training room. He hates all that rehab and everything. He's a football player, and that's who he is. And so obviously, very excited about the opportunity to hopefully get him back out there on the field and to have him on our defense again.
And while this is a question about a guy on the other side of the ball, you are not just a defensive leader, you are a team leader. And when a lot going on about Andre Johnson and whether he was going to be back or not, reports he was in the building on Monday. As a leader on this team, is it something, do you contact him? Do you try and find out what's going on with him and get involved in that?
It's one of those situations where Andre's been in the league a long time. He has a lot of respect around the locker room, around the team. And it's a situation where he's dealing with management, and there's really nothing in that type of situation that I'm going to help with. So I kind of let that be to him and the management to figure out. I assume that they'll get it figured out, and then hopefully he'll be there. But it's one of those situations where I don't really see stepping in is going to help in any way. So when he comes back, I'll be there to welcome him, obviously.
J.J. Watt of the Texans is with us. Before we let you go, J.J., I remember the last time we had you on, we were talking about, you had made some comments that you're so busy working on your profession right now, you don't really have time for much of a personal life, girlfriend, that kind of thing. So I have to know, you had a whole summer, you had a lot of time off. Tell me one fun thing you did. I need to hear why you were working in Wisconsin this past month. I'm sure you were working out daily and hard. You have to have done something fun during your time off. Give me one fun thing that J.J. Watt did during this off season.
I spent some time on the 4th of July on the lake, so got to do that. Did a little bit of tubing, hanging out on a boat with friends. That's always fun. And then I tried to play a little bit of golf. I don't get to spend a whole lot of time with my brothers because they play for Wisconsin. So anytime I tried to play a little bit of golf with them just so we could spend some quality time together as brothers. But other than that, it's really just training. But, yeah, I try and fit in a little bit of fun here and there.
How good's your golf game?
Awful, absolutely awful. But I'm working on it. And, golf is frustrating because I can't use my size, speed, or agility. It's all finesse, and that's frustrating to me. I just want to hit it as hard as I can.
And plus, your body's beat up. It's not like the red jersey-wearing quarterbacks who don't get hurt and can play golf better.
I like that we have the same mindset there. I like that.
J.J. Watt, good luck as you get camp started. We always enjoy the time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You have a great day.
And that's J.J. Watt. As Houston is one of the many teams getting set with their training camps getting underway, and he's obviously one of the genuinely great players in the league.
You look at two huge disappointments last year from the expectation. One in the AFC, Houston, one in the NFC, Atlanta. Mm-hmm. A lot to do with injury, but high expectations and low results. So this is a team like Atlanta and the NFC that are looking to really right the ship. And if they can get Andre Johnson back on the field, obviously that's going to be a huge help. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the quarterback there. You have an excellent defense. Let's see where the offense can go and see if they can challenge the Colts in that division.
I guess the question is, have they figured out their quarterback question? It's very hard to win in the NFL if you have below-average quarterback play. You can do it. Yeah. You have to be absolutely spectacular in other places. And their defense is very good, but it wasn't good. I mean, they won 2 games last year. So
right. You're right.
Obviously, it wasn't spectacular. So the question is, have they solved the quarterback problem? Will the kid that they drafted or Ryan Fitzpatrick play well enough to not put them in a position where they absolutely can't win, and let the J.J. Watts and Jadeveon Clowneys, et cetera, of the world go out there, wreak havoc, and find a way to win 6, 7, 8, who knows how crazy things may get games, because it's not a great division. Now, you might be able to find a way to a couple of wins in that division. Indy's got some problems. They're going to lose Quinn for the beginning of the season with the suspension. If you're looking for a team that could win a lot more games than it did last year, that's one place you might look.
I think so as well. And I think, and in the NFC, I would say Atlanta, if everybody comes back healthy from their injuries.
JJ was on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Barbecue fans, get the Subway for the delicious $6 footlong special, the barbecue oven roasted chicken melt. Subway eat fresh. We had a terrific discussion this morning about college athletes, college sports, where it is, where it's going, all the rest of that. It was kicked off by the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference. There's so much there to get to with the head coach at the University of Texas.
Yeah, Charlie Strong, and I have a big question for him. He's a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
I hope he lets his defense hit his quarterbacks in camp.
There's no chance he's letting his.
Oh, I want him to. I hope he does.
Well, we'll ask him that question.
Yeah.
He'll be in our studio next. We'll get that one out of the way quickly, and then we'll move on to more important things.
It's the quarterback.
With Charlie Strong next on Mike and Mike.
It's the quarterback.
You always hear it is magnified in the job that you've now taken. Can you give us an example of that? How have you seen the difference in that so far since you've taken the job?
Well, Mike, the only thing I can say, the best advice that I got was don't treat it any different than you have with any other job. And that's the way I approached it. You know, and the good thing about it, here in about another week, I'm going to be able to go out and go coach football. The only time I've had a chance to do that is through spring practice. But in the spring, I went on a tour, so I just wanted everyone just to know who I was. And so I went across the state, did 12 cities, and it was really exciting just to see the passion and the enthusiasm of our fans.
But there is going to be more with the network and such, and you're not a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, that goes looking for publicity. You're not a guy you're not that moth that seeks the camera light. So, but it's going to be there, and what's your take on that, and just how much more you'll have to do there?
Well, I don't mind it because I know it comes with the job, and I know the requirements and everything that is asking me. I'm gonna go do it. But I just know this, and they understand that at the end of the day, we have to go win football games too.
Mike and Mike, Charlie Strong is here, the coach of Texas, going into a new conference. You've coached in other conferences before. There were some comments that were made by Jimbo Fisher, the coach at Florida State, who won a national championship last year, that now that everyone is competing on some level of equal footing for a playoff, the first ever college football playoff, that every conference should do things the same way, which is to say their conference has a championship game, your conference does not. Now, the flip side difference is they play 8 conference games in the regular season. The 12 plays 9. My question to you as the coach would be, do you think it is accurate to say that all the conferences should be uniform in that, one way or the other, that if you're all going to be competing for the same playoff, that everyone should be getting there the same way?
Well, they should, but if you look at it, you're right. Within the Big 12, we play 9 conference games. Okay, I was in the Southeastern Conference, so we're East and West, so we're split. So in the East, you played everyone on the side of the East, but on the West, you didn't get a chance to rotate. You only rotated with some of those teams. So we're going to do it. Then everyone should play everyone within that conference, and then I think it'll be more of a fair advantage. And then we can talk about, I have a lot of respect for Jimbo, but then we can talk about, hey, what's really fair and what isn't fair. So we really don't know that right now. But with us playing 9 conference games, I think it's pretty fair for our conference.
So you don't think that you need to play a conference championship game?
Well, right now, I don't think we really need to because we have 9 anyway. So you look at it, the Southeastern Conference, they're playing 8 games. So their number 9 game is going to be the conference championship game.
And right now, one of the reasons is there's only 10 in the conference and 12. You need 6 for each division to have that because there obviously used to be a Big 12 championship game. As far as your team this year, there were things made of when you said that the expectation of a national championship. It's interesting. Yesterday when Nick Saban was here, he was asked with new quarterbacks how that if national championship was unrealistic, and he basically agreed to that as well. And not nearly as much was made out of it when you said don't expect it this year. So how do you have to temper those expectations?
Well, as you look at it, and I was just looking at our team after we had come out of spring practice, and our quarterback, David Ash, didn't finish our spring ball because he got injured. So at that point, I said, there's no way we're going to go compete for a national championship with what I just had seen and the way we had practiced. And it's all about us just getting to know our football team at the time. I had no idea, how guys were going to go compete. And now that when the season starts, I will have a better idea because I know now with the competition coming, how well we're going to go into these games and actually go compete.
Where is your team now? Where is the strength of your team?
Well, right now, if you look at our strength of our football team, it had to be at our running back position. Jonathan Gray's a young man that was cleared the other day. So Malcolm Brown had an unbelievable spring. I'll get Joe Bergeron back. And then you look at us on defense up front, we returned 3 or 4 starters with our defensive front. So I just, right now I just feeling like there's still some holes, and there's a lot of improving that has to be done. But it's all about team chemistry, and us just coming together as a football team also.
Mike and Mike, Charlie Strong's the new coach of Texas. I'm sitting close enough. I can almost feel the excitement coming through. You're ready for practice. I mean, you're really ready to go. I can just feel it, that you look like you were ready to burst out of that shirt. You're so ready to have, if you're not going to be hitting anybody, but have other people hitting each other.
No, I'm not, but I am really ready because I just want to just look at this team because now I've had 7 months with them, and now it's all about just phases, and so we're going to go into phase 4 with our preseason camp and just watch them and just watch it, just see what we've taught them with just fundamentals and technique, and then really are they really getting it, and then they really just want to accept change and just go change their whole work ethic and their whole attitude.
One more for you here, because as you're running one of the highest profile programs in all of college sports. There's been so much talk. Mike and I had an hour discussion this morning on one particular portion brought up actually by Bob Bowlesby about whether athletes who are playing in the non-revenue sports should be treated exactly the same as the football and basketball players. There's so many different elements to it. But I think the real big question here is, does the college sports system need a revamping? Does it merely need to be tweaked a little, or do we really need to get a bunch of smart people together and completely change the system? You've been in it a long time. You probably plan to be in it a long time. Do you think it needs a major overhaul?
I don't know necessarily if you really need a major overhaul, but it can be tweaked. And when you talk about just non-revenue student athletes, I look at it like this: like they practice, they put in the same work that everyone else does, so they should be treated. They should be given. And I know that some guys are blessed; they have talent. That's why they're there on scholarship. But let's not judge them because of the talent they have and what we're doing for them against a non-revenue sport. I look at male and I look at females. The females should be treated like the males. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, but some sports are going to generate more income and revenue than other sports. But that's fine. Just go take care of those sports.
As far as that first game at home for Texas this year, now you've been obviously at big programs, assistant at Notre Dame and at Florida, I think interim head coach at Florida as well, then head coach at Louisville. So you've been in these major stadiums, but everybody does say this Texas job is a different job. Do you expect it to be different than everywhere else you've been on that first home game day?
Well, I think what's going to be different for me, Mike, is when we run out there, there's 90,000+ people standing there. They're looking at you, and they want to see what we're going to show them and what this team is going to be about. But I have an unbelievable coaching staff, and I have my coordinators. They've been around it for a long time, so we understand. So we know what's really going on, and we know the task at hand and what we need to do and what we need to go accomplish.
All right, a couple more. Do you already know the first play you'll run in the first game?
Double reverse pass.
And will you let your defensive guys in camp hit the quarterbacks or no?
Oh, no. Stay away from that quarterback. I cannot lose a quarterback. If I'm going to lose that quarterback, let's lose him in the game against someone. I don't want to lose him in practice. Now, we may brush him. Sometimes we may push him down. But I'm not going to let him just go front him up and just take him to the ground and drive him to the ground.
I hates quarterbacks.
I can tell it.
A little shove here and there, though, right? I mean,
it's a shove now. Because if you come free on the pass rush, I can tell him. He can push him down from behind.
Okay.
He can let him feel it. But no, that quarterback will get hit. But no, I'm not just going to just open it up and just say, hey, take the jersey off the quarterback and let him just have free. No, I can't do that.
I guess I'm asking.
Sounds to me like the line of demarcation is you can do unto him things that would injure me, but not things that would injure him.
Yeah, I get it.
Charlie Strong, the new coach of Texas, be here at ESPN all day long. It's a pleasure to meet you in person.
Already, thank you.
Thank you very much. Best of luck as everything gets started for you. A champion of another kind in our studio coming up next with your help on Mike and Mike after this word from Sport Clips. Golic, how can you possibly make the Sport Clips MVP haircut experience better? How about giving guys more of it?
Yep, the double MVP for the price of a single, and then MVP on ice are available through the month of July at your local Sport Clips. It turns the legendary hot towel into a refreshing chilled towel, the Refreshment Cubed, at no extra charge. Sport Clips Instant Replay is the MVP experience with twice the legendary hot towel treatment, double the relaxing shampoo and scalp treatment, and twofold the awesome Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy. 1,200 locations nationwide. Find yours at sportclips.com. Back after this, Mike and Mike.
Mazda, improve your road game. Mazda is the only automaker to have 2 sedans on this year's Car Drivers 10 Best. The Mazda 3 and Mazda 6 combine the performance you want with the efficiency that you need. And appropriately, we're talking about cars, because it is our pleasure to welcome into our studio the 2012 Sprint Cup champion, having a great year again this year, Brad Keselowski in our studio. Good to see you, Brad. How are you?
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Here's how considerate Brad is. When he first sat down, they had the chair that he's sitting in propped up a little high, and he felt that he looked too tall for us. And I said, it might be good for your image. I mean, have people think, you're a real big guy. But he didn't feel comfortable being artificially lifted like that.
Unlike you.
Yeah.
Unlike you, he's very conscientious of others. Where you don't care about others, Brad does.
I was just doing the math, because I was just, we were talking about this during the break, because I told, Mike he had 2 minutes to do something, and we started thinking about what you could do in 2 minutes. In the span of 2 minutes, you could drive, you're driving a mile every 20 seconds.
That's at 180 mile an hour. So that's an average track. Our fastest track, Michigan, we're about 215.
215. So let's even use 180 because 60 goes
round
into
numbers,
it nicely.
Yeah, you like the round numbers.
I'm not good enough at math to be doing it that quickly. If you're doing, in the span of 2 minutes, you could drive 6 miles.
Yes.
I mean, that speed. Is there ever a point where you say to yourself, holy smoke, we are going fast?
Sometimes, mostly only when I'm wrecking. It doesn't feel that fast until there's a wall that you're about to hit.
Until you stop immediately?
Yes. Then it feels really fast.
It wasn't NASCAR. We were at the Indy 500 many years ago, and Scott Sharp took us around the track in the pace car. And he got us,
what, about 100 mile an hour?
No, we got up to like 180.
Like
it was almost exactly
that. Oh, wow.
This was, on a Tuesday. I mean, there's no other cars on the track. And it freaked me out. And he took us right up to the wall. I mean, I could have reached my hand out and touched the wall. And afterwards I said to him, so is that roughly what it feels like? And he said, well, yeah, but it's about 50 miles an hour faster when there's 29 other cars on the track.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's very similar.
Times like another 10. That'd be like taking batting practice, and you're against, a minor league pitcher, and he's throwing a 85 mile an hour fastball, and there's no fans in the stands. It'd be the same thing.
Mike and Mike, Brad Keselowski is in our studio. All right, let's get to this. So here you are as your season goes along. The NASCAR season is so grueling. I find what you guys do unbelievable. There's no stop. There's no time off. All of the travel, the extraordinary focus that it has to take every week to be in the cars. And now you're in a position where you are squarely in the chase. I think it's fairly safe. You're going to be there at the end of the season. So how does that affect your mentality going through the rest of the, for lack of a better word, regular season?
Well, I think the first thing I have to sum up for the listeners that are tuning in today is this year the chase has been reformatted. So in years past, it was the top 12 cars in the point standings after the first 26 races. This year, it's the top 16. So it's a little bit bigger chase, much like what they talk about the NFL all the time about expanding the playoffs. There's a little bit more cars that are going to be in the chase, and the chase is NASCAR's version of the playoffs. And to get in, the qualifying factors are if you win a race, you're automatically locked in. And if you're in the top group in points, you get locked in. So we won a race earlier in the year, and now we've got 3 wins total to date. So, yes, we're locked in, and that is a huge stress reliever for us entering the season. But, that's our regular season. Once the actual chase starts, that doesn't mean anything. So, you have to think of it that way and kind of work backwards and say, all right, we're strong right now, and we can take chances and go kind of all out there to win big races like we have coming up this weekend in Indianapolis. But we don't want to lose our momentum. We don't want to get too far out there and try a whole bunch of crazy things and get lost along the way. So I think that's the key thing to think of. But it is certainly a huge stress reliever, but you can't lay your guard down or you're going to fall behind really quick.
Talk about, in your sport, the difference from week to week. You mentioned you're at the Brickyard this weekend. And, in football, even though you're on the road, field's the same size. Basketball court's the same size. Ice is the rink is the same size. Your track's not the same way, runs differently, so different mentality and strategy each week.
Well, I know for the fans that watch on TV, they just see a car and they see a racetrack, and it looks the same. But to your point, it'd be like if you told Peyton Manning that this week you're going to line up at quarterback. Like, oh, no problem, I got this all day, every day, no problem. Then you say, well, next week you're going to line up at tight end, and the week after you're going to line up at wide receiver and then running back. That's what it's like for a NASCAR race car driver.
It's that different.
It's that much different. The 4 tracks are that much different. The techniques, the styles, the thought process, the patterns, completely different every week. And that's why I think it's so rewarding to run well and to be a champion and to get those accolades, because you have to be extremely versatile to be successful in NASCAR.
Let me go through some of the scheduling here. Saturday, the nationwide race is on ESPN, 4 o'clock Eastern time for NASCAR Countdown, and then the race 4:30 Eastern. Then Sunday, NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing, the Brickyard, presented by Golden Corral, noon Eastern for NASCAR Countdown, and 1 o'clock Eastern time for race coverage. They gave us a list of questions we put out on Twitter. We asked, using the hashtag AskBrad, a variety of questions that your fans could tweet into us. And the one that we got from a variety of places is, people are telling us to ask you, have you finally bought a tank?
I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
See, I made this deal with myself that I would buy a tank if I won a championship, because it was
a tank.
Yes, I really like tanks. You know, I drive something that's fast and cool. Sometimes you just want to drive something that's slow and cool. And a tank is really cool and really slow. And, you know, I kind of like history, and so I thought it would be really cool. Well, I didn't realize when I made that deal how expensive a tank is. There was this huge auction that went up. Like, a good tank goes for like $1 million, and that's crazy. So I'm still looking. I just want a really nice tank that's not very expensive. So if there's anyone listening who owns a really nice tank and it's not very expensive, look for me.
Gently used? Gently?
Oh, yeah, used. I want it to be old. I like World War II era tanks.
Hey, I didn't know you could buy a tank. Where are you putting it?
You know what the interesting thing about it is, you can't buy an American tank. You can buy like another country. There's this whole like disarmament thing, and when the Americans got done with their tanks and stuff in World War II, they had to leave them in Europe. I don't know
all
the
these
name
rules
of it.
and
yeah,
stuff.
all these rules about owning a tank. Who would have thought? But it is really cool to me, and I want to own one day.
So give me the practical side of that. Well, you have the tank. Is it something, it's like a piece of art? You can just show it to people, or actually driving the tank?
I mean, I think both. My initial thought was that I would just...
you're running out to get a jug
You
of
can
milk?
get like a police escort and go anywhere you want with it, which I think would be really cool. Who knows, if like the apocalypse comes, I'm ready.
Good point.
You know, who else will have a tank?
My kids are always talking about being ready for the zombie apocalypse. Always talking about being ready. You got a tank, you're in good shape.
They're going to come over to my house.
That's exactly right. Got another one here from Jeremy that said, if you could have been pro in another sport, what would it have been?
Not basketball. I'm terrible at that. There's a video floating out there of how bad I am at basketball, and I'm a little embarrassed.
Yeah, us too. Don't worry.
There's one of those yes, too. Yeah.
You have one of those too?
Ours was in the celebrity game, unfortunately, at the NBA All-Star game.
I feel like we're a team now.
Golick missed it. He shot a 1-foot layup, 6 inches.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was just horrible. But I did jump at least a half inch off the ground to do it.
That's good. I feel better about myself. This was really productive. Let's keep this Q&A going.
But what sport would you have played?
You know, I really liked hockey, but I'm really not good at any other sport. I got to be honest. I'm not.
And here's one that I always wonder about. Marty tweets this in. Do you ever get scared before a race, knowing the possibility of a wreck and knowing the dangers that obviously exist?
I don't know. I think when I was, younger in my career, those things tend to happen because you're just really nervous. But I don't really anymore. You know, I get nervous as far as being able to perform for my team and make sure that I'm, playing or executing at the highest level, but not about my own safety. You know, I think over time that just kind of, you get in a spot where you're comfortable with the decision you've made and the lifestyle you've made, and that's just part of it.
A tank. I'm hung up on the tank. On what you do. One thing I do is I'd run over things.
Well, I want to take like old race cars that are maybe like tore up and we're not going to race them again.
How great would that be? Do you have a place to put it? I mean, if someone called you today and said, Brad, we got a tank for you, where were you putting
actually I have a spot mapped out in my front yard. I really do. And I've already got like the area figured out, how I want to point it, everything. I just haven't bought the tank.
In your front yard, so there's really no homeowners association.
No, not where I live. I live back in the woods, you see.
Imagine that in Manhattan. The alternate side of the street parking. You got to move my tank from one side to the other. Again, you'll see it this weekend as NASCAR returns to ESPN. Brad, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck, and good luck getting the tank. We hope that works out well for you. A very interesting day it was. We thank you all for being with us. One of our favorites tomorrow, Frank Caliendo, will be here. So be prepared to laugh and have fun and do all sorts of other things. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Mike and Mike
on ESPN Radio.